Welcome here to RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live for what's going to be the 12th and final round of the iAdvanced Motorsports Indy Elite Series. 11 fantastic races have happened thus far, and as we move forward, there is one left. 130 laps, 325 miles is what is ahead of the drivers in today's Lionheart Retro Series 325. And will Tim Holgate be able to round out the championship, or will maybe a dark horse such as Andrew Kinsella, Joe Branch, or Brandon Trost be able to round it out? Tune in and find out in just a few moments' time with us here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. Don't go away.
Watch Ernie, go, go, go. Car right, car right, car right, car right, watch car right. Get ready. Dude, more heads up in that. Jeez.
Right on the back wing. Can he make it happen?
Yeah! Yeah! Push like hell. We gotta stay in front of these guys.
Both drivers on the push to pass. Contact in the pit lane.
All right, sexy. Let that eagle fly. What do I do? What happened? Push here. Push hard. Let's go get this guy. Car outside. We're behind you. Control. Clear outside. Good job. Just spun behind you. I don't know if you got him or not.
He got out of it so hard. Look at these guys are all over the back.
Full throttle.
IndyCar. The in and out lap. What's next?
Come and get the checkers, big boy. Oh, baby, that was good. Hit me. Inside, inside, outside, inside, outside.
2017 Verizon IndyCar Series. See what's next.
Welcome back with us here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live as coverage begins now from your Apex InfoTech Indy Elite Series. Randy Chinitz, Cisco Scaramuza bringing you all the action today, and well, let's just take a look at what we have ahead of us. 73 degrees is the ambient air temperature with 40-degree humidity. Clear clouds today, which is going to make things pretty slippery, and a 4-kilometer-an-hour wind is going to be what these guys are dealing with today. Cisco, Long Pond, USA. This is a tricky triangle here at Pocono.
Yes, it is known very much as one of the toughest circuits on the IndyCar season to date. 2.5 miles. It's easy because it's 3 turns, a little bit different. Of course, we'll talk a little bit more as the race goes on about these different turns and during maybe the pace laps a little bit. But the biggest story of tonight, of course, because it's the last race of the championship, let's look at the championship. And right now, 30 points is what Tim Holgate has over Andrew Kinsella. And that right now, the battle for the championship, and then 10 more points back to Joe Branch in third. So Holgate, should he have a good race tonight, he'll be fine. But he just needs to make sure that he has a nice, clean, and everything goes to plan for that driver of the 06 to bring home that championship.
Yeah, for those who are unaware, in order for Tim Holgate to clinch this, he essentially needs to finish on the podium. A top 3 guarantees him this championship here today. Andrew Kinsella, if he wins this race and Tim Holgate finishes 4th or worse, Andrew Kinsella will then be your champion. Joe Branch and Brandon Trost, they also have some outside chances depending how things play out. If Joe Branch wins the race and if Holgate finishes P6 or worse, Joe Branch will then be your season champion. There's also a really outside shot for Brandon Trost, but given the way it looks right now, we're not going to take that into account right now, as your 2 favorites are definitely Holgate and Kinsella, with Branch, I think, being the easy dark horse opportunity today.
No, I absolutely have to agree, Randy. Holgate, I think, has the best shot at this and already on the qualifying boards at the moment, topping the board with a .533 over Vic Caudill. So it's looking good for the 06, but this is a very long race, 130 laps at what is already a very long racetrack. A lot of aerodynamics going to come into play. This place can take us, especially on that front straightaway, as we saw here about a month ago on the real life side of things. That front straightaway can be such a wild card. You can get cars 6, 7 wide going down that front straightaway, the longest straightaway this series has gone to. It's it's going to be really sketchy on these opening laps and when we come back from the yellow flags going there, because there's so much racing room and things can go so wrong if you aren't very careful on where you're putting that car.
As you can see on your screens, about 4 minutes currently left in qualifying. Niles Anders is out there on track right now. However, he is not on a hot lap. I've been looking to see if there's any drivers. Well, Brandon Trost is one who we're waiting on. He's certainly, well, he's staged in the pit lane. Vic Caudill is another one. He's already put in his lap times, and he's in second place with a 40.574. Niles just getting a little bit of late practice in after putting in his first qualifying time. But still a handful of drivers we need to see qualify. I think most noticeably here, Cisco, that number 007 machine of Brandon Trost, he's the one we need to really wait and see. He is technically a championship contender, and, well, starting 16th, that's not where you want to start.
Yeah, we're waiting on Trost to make the lap. Right now on track, though, is that 98 of Niles Anders coming around turn number 3 right now. Back onto the front straightaway. This will be his second timed lap, should everything go well. So survey says at the line, no time, it looks like.
Well, that was an out lap for him. And so,
he had a, okay, so this will be a hot lap this time.
Well, no, because you only get 2 laps, and he's working lap 3. So Niles Anders' qualifying attempts are done.
Okay.
So he's just getting some practice. Now, Brandon Trost in the number 007 machine, pink and blue machine, working through turn 2. This is his out lap, and he's about to start the first of a couple hot laps. And let's ride on board with him for this, as we'll put it on the roll bar as they go now through corner number 3. Almost said 3 and 4, simply out of habit. And as you said, Cisco, long front straightaway as he goes under the starter stand.
Yeah, this first turn we're coming up to modeled after the old Trenton Speedway. And very interesting corner because everybody has to get single file. You want to make sure you hit the apex in the right way so you can apex off, get right up to that wall, exactly how Trost did. It was a little close for my taste. I usually like to apex once you get past that.
He's ejecting out of this run.
Oh, yeah, he did. I thought he was close to it, and I didn't think he tagged it, but it looks like he did. Yeah, he did. He actually made very slight contact, but that threw away that lap for Trost. So that's basically donezo. So he's going to maybe at least go out there and see if he can set some kind of lap here. So warming up that car yet again is the driver of the 007.
So we got 2 more minutes in this session for him to get a time in, and that is doable. You're looking at about 40, as we said, 40.5 seconds when it comes to a hot lap around this place. So he's going to be able to just get this lap time in. Still have a couple drivers who've yet to put in laps. Tony Schoen and Adam Plunkett. They have chosen to not start this race, well, not qualify for this race. But as Trost comes off that 3rd corner, it's going to be the big talking point. What is he going to be able to do as he works himself down this front straightaway once again? This will be the start now of his 2nd timed lap. His only opportunity to get this done. Into turn 1 he comes, Cisco. He got this wrong last time. He can't afford to do it again. And he's a little high through 1. Didn't really get it down to the apex.
No, he didn't. But now you come down this very long kind of almost back straightaway in a sense as we head towards turn number 2, styled after Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You notice on the bottom that access road kind of renders it very similar. You come down this straightaway, the shortest of the 3 straightaways here at Pocono, and into turn number 3, modeled after the Milwaukee Mile. He definitely didn't get the apex. I don't think he did that. At least that's not how I would have taken it, but across the line survey says for Trost, 40.905. That is not good at all.
Yeah, that's going to put him P number 12, and considering his situation sitting 4th in the championship, not going to be what he wants here today. And now as the moments start to tick down here in qualifying, you see Niles Anders still running a handful of laps out there, and, well, he's the only car on track. So 30 seconds left here, and then once the times come in and they are official, we'll go down your starting grid. But right now, the way it looks, Tim Holgate and Vic Caudill, they will be your front row for the season finale here in the Indy Elite Series.
Yeah, they will, and I want to note that fuel mileage today is going to be paramount because of the long and it's most of this track you're going to spend at full throttle, so you have to make sure you're managing that fuel, you're staying in slipstream, and also that weight jack are so important here because of the aerodynamic tendencies of this track and how much it can change as a run goes on, and how much it changes when those Firestone Firehawks get the grip starting to fall off.
So with that, the cars are going to begin to take the grid, and we will go down for the final time this season, the 12th time this season, the starting grid for the Indy Elite Series here at Pocono. And that's the wrong tab that I just clicked right there, but now we bring up the first one. We see Tim Holgate coming off with the pole with a 40.534. One of the quintessential drivers in iRacing IndyCar history. He looks to wrap up another IndyCar championship to put as a notch onto his belt. Vic Caudell, another experienced driver as well. He will start from the outside of that second row. Niles Anders and Joe Branch, they will make up row number 2. Joe Branch currently sits third in the points. He's definitely not the favorite between Kinsella and Holgate, but he does have the potential opportunity, and he was good last time out at Gateway. Go down to rows number 3 and 4. Joe Flanagan and Marco Aurelio Brazil, a couple big names in the Indy series right there, with Austin Espiti and Andrew Kinsella. Kinsella currently sits second in the points, and he will roll off this 325-mile race from that 8th position. Rounding out the top 10, Andres Elk, along as John Downing, with Bradley Walters and Brandon Trost, making up row number 6. Row number 7, Vinicius Gotardello with Robert Gortz, Stanley Inch and Tony Schoen make up that 8th row. Then row number 9, all on his lowsome, is Adam Plunkett in the number 4 machine. So you mentioned a couple things right there, Cisco, that these drivers have to be mindful of. Fuel economy is definitely going to be one of them. Of course, a handful of other things to think about as well. How you manage the tires, how you manage the traffic as well. It's not a big field today. Only 17 cars for this 325-mile race, so traffic shouldn't be too much of an issue. But dirty air in these Indy cars, always a talking point, especially on a track like this.
Yeah, the turbulence from the air, especially with a lot of straightaways, is going to mean these guys are going to be spreading it out, especially on this front straightaway, to break that draft, be able to get a run. They'll sit behind that car. It's very similar here, the aerodynamic tendencies at what we see at Indianapolis, because that track also has a lot of long straightaways and very sweeping but
same
not
aero kit
super
as well.
bank turns. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, for these guys, it's going to be a case of you sit in the draft, and as soon as you start to get a run, if you want to make a pass, you need to make sure you get off the corner right, you get a good run on that guy in front of you, and then you pull out at the last possible second and make sure when that dirty air hits you that that car's going to be planted going in the turn. If you have to wait that long, you do not want to wait that long, though, Randy, because if you can get the pass done before the corner, that's going to make your life a whole lot easier.
That's definitely what these drivers are going to be looking to do. You want to get the passes done ideally on the entry into some of these corners. The ideal situation's going to be going into corner number 1. You, of course, have that long front straightaway you can work passes. Then into turn 2 as well. You have that super long pond straightaway. And then going into that tunnel turn is basically like making a pass at turn 1 or turn 3 at Indy, Cisco. Basically, if you can get the run, get it up the inside, you can make that move stick.
Yeah, and we come through turn number 2, the trickiest part of the track, the tunnel turn, because of, you know, how dangerous that curb is. We saw it in Indianapolis earlier in the year. What happens when you clip that curb? You'll go right around and you might collect a couple cars with you. So this first lap, though, is going to be crucial. We mentioned traffic may not be an issue. Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be an issue on this first lap at least.
11 races down. Started in Homestead, then in New Hampshire, Fontana, Richmond, Long Beach, Phoenix, Indianapolis, Iowa, Milwaukee, Texas, and Gateway, and we will cap it off after 12 races here at Pocono. 325 miles, 130 laps on the board, and the field is going to work themselves off the third and final corner. We await now that iRacing safety car to pull on a pit lane, and the 06 of Tim Holgate will be in command of the field. Green flag flies, 130 laps now will start ticking down. This is a good jump from the 06 machine of Tim Holgate as Vic Caudell and Niles Anders there in pursuit of that number 06 machine through 1 and 2. They're single file through the top 4 side by side for 5th, though, as the number 14 machine is currently looking on the inside. That's Andrew Kinsella looking to make big moves already.
And Marco Aurelio Brazil fell back with that battle. You see Trost, that pink and blue car, looking to the inside right now of Joe Flanagan in the 53. He's going to make that pass happen. So Trost able to move past him here and already starting to make move. Is that driver, the 007, up 3 already, but Flanagan's not going to give up quite as they head through turns 3 and 4, and that position going to go back in favor of Joe Flanagan, but battle for the lead right now because Vic Caudell has a run. He gets out of it, though, as they head towards turn number 1. He looked like he had a run, but it wasn't ready for it there.
It's a long race today, so I think we're going to see a lot of those sorts of situations in this motor race. People getting a run and then deciding to back out of it, especially in a 325-mile race like this. As you said, Cisco, fuel economy is going to be a virtue that, if you can save fuel, it's going to be an amazing attribute for you. Tim Holgate's one of the best in these cars of being able to do it. And top 3 under a blanket as they run into corner number 3. Top 4 now as Niles Anders works the top side. And you can watch those top 4 here, Cisco, as they work through that third corner. Everyone fishing for clean air as they come back onto this long front straightaway. And let's see if Vic Caudill is going to make a move this time to go for the race lead. No, he's going to sit single file once again.
And if Caudill wants to, you can already start saving fuel, because all you have to do is sit behind Tim Holgate and just, you know, maybe 80% throttle, something like that. As long as you stay in his slipstream and you do not lose the leader, you'll be fine. So I think Caudill, not a bad idea to start saving fuel now. It'll always pay off later down the line, Randy. The shorter you can be on pit road, the less time you're going to lose. Tires not a factor when it comes into pit road time. It's all going to come down to how long these guys have to wait on pit road for fuel all day. If you can pick up half a second on pit road, that's huge on track.
Number 007 of Brandon Trost, he's looking to make moves, and we're going to ride on board with him down this long front straightaway. He's gotten himself up into that 6th position. Now they're going to go rolling down into corner number 3. He's trying to reel in. I believe that's Marco. No, I take that back now. Xander's out in front of him as they come now onto Long Pond straightaway. Brandon Trost, Pennsylvania native, should be more than familiar with this circuit. Again, into the corner number 2, the tunnel turn. Need to be careful of that curb, and there's a bump right in the middle of it that you go up and over. That can easily upset the car as well. It's through the short chute. He's really reeled in. That number 98 of Niles Anders. As through corner number 3 they go. You see Brandon Trost up to the top side trying to work that grip along the top. A little bit of extra traction up there as they come now down this long front straightaway. Trost working the slipstream once again. He has a run on Anders here at the end of the straightaway. Does he look to the inside? No, he does not. Brandon Trost, generally known for being very aggressive, chooses to be patient, as Anders actually running a pretty wide entrance to the corner, and I think that cost Trost a little bit in terms of dirty air. Hurt him have to lift out of the throttle there, which definitely isn't ideal.
And meanwhile, Marco Brazil has been charging through the field. The 812 is up to 3rd place position already, +3 on the evening, so not as far up as what Trost is doing right now, but it's been doing an excellent job under attack right now. As you see Trost down to the inside, he's going to try and battle with Anders. Not going to happen that time. It's going to be 3 wide just for a moment. Andrew Kinsella in the 14 tried to make it work, didn't have the run off the corner, was kind of stuck down on the bottom side, so wasn't able to get that run to go in his favor. So he's going to drop in behind Trost right now, as well as Anders. So top 4 kind of starting to spread each other out. And then you got these battle packs right now between Kinsella and that driver Brandon Trost, and then also another battle pack I've been keeping an eye on, Andreas Ike and Joe Flanagan as well.
Handful of battle packs for sure. I think the most notable one is those race leaders who've opened up a pretty pretty significant gap over the rest of the field already as they work themselves off the 3rd corner and onto this long front straightaway. Vic Caudill and Tim Holgate have a 1-second gap over the rest of the field already. Marco Aurelio Brazil, he currently sits in 3rd, and that gap just stretched out a little bit more. That's a pretty big gap for these two to have already opened up here at Cisco just in these opening 7 laps. 1 second is, well, just a huge pain to try to reel in on a track such as Pocono.
And side-by-side actually going on. Kinsella got a little bit loose behind Trost there, and he jumped to the inside. They head for the tunnel turn right now. The 14's going to leave it there down on the bottom side. Trost is going to try and cut him off. Still car on the inside, so Kinsella going to fall back in line. And Kinsella's been trying to push the envelope here, trying to get Trost, trying to get that position away from him, but you see him lose all that time in turn number 3. That car did not look happy at all, and that's going to bring Espati right into this battle. The driver of the 777 looking for something here down the front straightaway. He looks to inside. He'll send it in there here in turn number 1, and he'll make it stick. The Chevrolet machine of Espati, he'll make the pass happen, but Kinsella trying to come and cross him over.
We rode on board with Austin Espati for that pass. Now let's go back and right on board with Andrew Kinsella as they work themselves now into the tunnel turn. You can see the way the slipstream works. You watch that number 14 machine of Kinsella suck right up to the back of the 777 of Austin Espati, and now through corner number 3, and you see so many cars running different lines. You can see the 777 on the bottom, Kinsella in the middle. He had Brandon Trost and the 007 couple cars up ahead. He's running a completely different line as well. And down this long front straightaway they come, and due to everyone being so tightly compact in this league group, it's sweet Brandon Trost make a move, put himself up into P number 5, I believe, on Niles Anders. So well done by the 007 as the 777 of Austin Espati pushes a little bit on the exit of corner number 1. Andrew Kinsella might have a bit of a run here, but no, not going to go for it. Kinsella is going to wait in line here in 7 or 8.
Yeah. Yeah, Kinsella gonna wait in line a little bit. He was under attack from Joe Flanagan earlier on, but Flanagan tried to make a move to the inside. The car got extremely tight, so he backed off of the gas pedal, and that allowed Kinsella to open up that gap a little bit. So he's kind of fallen to the back of these guys. I don't think he's terribly, we saw him be a little bit aggressive, but at this point I think it's a good idea for him to maybe just sit behind Espity, because Espity also trying to charge through this field right now. He's back up to where he started, but I mean, talk about charging. Trost has been doing that all day and already starting to close in on that car of Joe Branch in front of him. Trost trying to put as many points on the board as possible, and meanwhile battle changed for the lead right there. Vic Caudell just made it very easy past Tim Holgate, and Holgate really didn't even put up much of a fight. Just that car was just not very good coming out of turn number 1. Vic Caudell said thank you very much, passed him, the DHL machine up front.
We're going to ride on board here with Vic Caudell as he made that pass. Getting here on the instant replay and see down the front straight of that 06 machine of Holgate. Hilariously slow, almost down Long Pond, and Vic Caudell just moves to the inside, going in towards the tunnel turn, gets to the inside. Well, he makes that pass stick, and Tim Holgate, very experienced driver here, doesn't really fight him for it. So Vic Caudell, now your race leader here, as they work themselves down Long Pond once again into corner number 2, and Caudell has already opened up a pretty sizable margin over that 06 machine of Tim Holgate. Holgate may be looking to save fuel here a little bit, as that's something he's more than well known for in these Indy cars, and both these cars as well as the old ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're Holgate, you're thinking, you're looking, where is Andrew Kinsella? Kinsella's just been kind of cruising behind these guys. So if I'm Holgate, I don't need to push the envelope
I'm going to interrupt you here, Cisco. It's Tim Holgate back to the inside into turn number 1. Tim Holgate now regains your race lead over Vic Caudell.
I was just getting there, but Tim Holgate nonetheless got back to the lead. But now Caudell gonna have a little bit of a slipstream back towards the 06. Nothing there though, so Holgate retains the lead, or retakes the lead rather, and Caudell falls back to that second spot. Meanwhile, Austin Espity passed, thank you very much, on Joe Branch, so the Pennzoil machine falls back another place, and Espity gonna move himself up the position as well. But like I was saying, Randy, if you're Holgate, you're not really terribly concerned with Vic Caudell. Yeah, you got the lead back, but it wasn't a particularly aggressive move. If I'm Holgate, I'm wondering, where's Andrew Kinsella? He's 7th? Okay, I don't have to worry right now.
And keep in mind, Brandon Trost and Joe Branch, even though they are competitors and they are close to that rearview mirror of Tim Holgate, they're not really going to be people, I think, for that Holgate's going to really keep in mind, because unless Holgate has a disaster of a race and finishes way down the order, there's no way those two are really going to come into this. As they're coming off corner number 2, Vic Caudell has a bit of a look on that 06 of Tim Holgate, and through corner number 3 they're going to come. Couple cars up to the top side, Holgate down to the bottom, as they again come down onto this long front straightaway. And we'll say this, somebody who's done a fantastic job the last handful of laps, Cisco, is Marco Aurelio Brazil, reeling in that lead pack. The gap is now down under 0.6 of a second. It was 0.6 at the start of the last lap, and Marco reeled that lead group in by 1/10.5.
Yeah, and Marco's been able to do that because the leader's been swapping back and forth, and that's slowed them down a little bit because they've been fighting side by side. Brazil's been able to just put his head down, push, and with him inside of the leaders here, he can try and make something happen if he's feeling up for it. I guess the question is, if you're Brazil, do you wait, let the leaders kind of use up their tires a little bit and try and fly by them later on in the run, or do you make something happen right now? Well, either way, Brazil, very good turn number 3, and right on to the rear wing of Vic Caudell. No, he's going to make it happen right now. Down to the inside of the 33 goes the 812. Will he keep it down there back into turn number 1? He'll get out of the throttle a little bit, but that's going to force Caudell. He was stuck in that draft behind the 06 of Holgate. The car pushed wide, but he was able to stay in that groove and survives the onslaught, at least for the moment, from Brazil.
As well done by Vic Caudell to defend that position on the top side of turn 1. And as your 3-car trio lead group works themselves now down the short sheet, Marco Aurelio Brazil again going to look to the inside of Vic Caudell, but nowhere near close enough there. Just harassing the mirrors. They work themselves to turn 3 once again. Marco's known for being really aggressive in these cars, and doesn't surprise me that the moment he gets potentially the opportunity to make a move on Vic Caudell, he goes for it, as we're currently working lap number 16 of 130. Been green all the way.
Yeah, green all the way so far, and Caudell still looking to try and make something happen. A garbage turn number 1 for him, though. He lost a ton of speed, and here comes Marco Brazil out of nowhere. Huge run for the 812, and he'll make it happen down to the inside of the DHL machine. Side by side going in the tunnel turn. Marco Brazil says, thank you very much. I'll take second place. Caudell going to file in right behind in that third place position. They head through turn 3, and Caudell's been getting very good runs through this corner. Survey says those they come out of turn 3. Will he have something? Yes, he will, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to pass.
So down the front straightaway they come, and I think you're right, not quite enough for Vic Caudell to move himself up back into that second spot on Marco Aurelio Brazil. Tim Holgate has taken this slight advantage that he's been given to reel out a little bit of a gap over Marco and Vic, about 0.4 of a second as they run. Also keep in mind the likes of Trost, SP, and Kinsella, excuse me, they've been doing a good job of reeling in this lead through as well as harassing the mirrors as Vic Caudell do turn 2. He looks to the high side trying to make a move, and now into corner number 3. Let's see what's going to happen. Again, everyone picking different lines, trying to get that clean air. And it's almost sort of funny just watching these guys. They almost take grid spots, and I believe that was Andrew Kinsella. We just saw tag the wall. We're going to get an instant replay on that here in just a moment here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. But very close moment there for that number 14 machine, I believe. It may have been Austin Espati, but we're right on board through the tunnel turn right now. We'll see if there was indeed that 14 machine that scraped the wall off 3.
Yeah, and what happened there, that all started with Brandon Trost kind of falling through the order. He lost that spot to Espati, and they're going side by side right now once we cut back to the live picture. But Trost kind of fell through the order, about a position. Then Kinsella tried to make it happen in turn number 3, but the car just got tight. He hit that wall air, and the car just tightened up, wham, into the turn 3 wall. Not too bad, but just slight spoiler damage on that 14. Meanwhile, the battle right now continues with those guys as we cut back to the live picture. Trost down to the inside of Vic Caudell, and Caudell has not had a good couple laps because he's fallen as Austin Espati's been able to get past him, and now Trost's going to kind of squeeze him there coming out of turn number 1. Got loose as the 007. This ain't over yet. That's going to be an Andrew Kinsella's going to come in with a whole head of steam. 3 wide into the tunnel turn. This ain't going to end well.
3 wide into corner number 2 they come, and well, it's not going to end well for Vic Caudell, but they're going to get it done cleanly. Well done there by Andrew Kinsella to pick up those 2 spots, and is Brandon Trost going to fight on the outside? He's going to go to the high line, but no, he's not really going to fight with that number 14 machine for that position back, but well done there by Andrew Kinsella to pick that spot up, and well done by those 3 to get through the tunnel turn cleanly there, 3 wide, as Trost is going to have a big run on Kinsella. We have a slow car in turn 1, not sure who that is, but maybe the first bit of lap traffic. So yeah, Danley
That was Danley Ench in the 52, Randy, and that allowed Marco Brazil to actually take the lead from Tim Holgate. That kind of shuffled that whole thing up. Brazil had a very good entry out of turn number 3. It was actually the lap car, didn't really have much to do about that. Brazil just got a monster run, was able to draft right up to the 06. They went 3 wide for about a moment, but Brazil did not lift. He was able to grab the lead from Holgate here. Holgate heading through turn 3 right now. That car, he's going to lose the second position to Austin Espati. So Espati going to make it happen. He's up to P2, and leaders swapping all over the place, and Holgate lost two positions in 1 lap.
So Tim Holgate, he drops back to 3rd, and keep in mind, he can finish in this 3rd spot and still clinch the championship. So if you're the 06 machine, you're not too nervous just yet, but there's 2 championship contenders just behind you. You have Brandon Trost and Andrew Kinsella, but they are currently fighting right now as Kinsella's going to look to the inside of the pink and blue 007 machine, and through the tunnel turn they come. The 14 of Kinsella doesn't quite get clear on the exit and drive up the racetrack, but he is clear now as they go running down into corner number 3. And again, they stagger through that very flat 3rd corner, and off of it they're going to come, and Kinsella very close to that wall on the exit. I think that 007 of Trost has a big run. He's going to look to the inside once again, Cisco.
Battle for the lead also going on. Trost down to the inside. Well, how about Austin Espati trying to go for more? The 777 made it happen. Turn number 1. Very good run out of turn 3 like we saw out of Trost. Trost also got his pass done, but the driver of the 777 right now in command of this field. Marco Brazil, though, not giving up quite yet. Very good run coming down that second straightaway. Now down the short chute towards turn number 3, and Brazil going to look to see if he can get the run back like what he's been getting out of turn number 3, but Espati sends it in way deep, almost down to the curb there. Is that driver Adam Plunkett in the number 4 down on the access road? Don't worry about him, he's good.
And pit stop start.
Looks
pit
like,
stop start.
yeah, pit
Marco
stop's going to happen
Kinsella,
right now,
they both
Randy.
come down onto pit lane.
Yep.
And so looks like our fuel window about 23 laps, Cisco. And doing the math, I think you're going to be really, what you said at the top of the show is going to play off in dividends, because let's see, what's that going to be? 7 stops to get to the end from here?
I'll have to break out the calculator and let you know for sure, but little bit earlier than what I was expecting, to be honest, Randy. I thought these guys were going to be out there for at least a couple more laps. They're going to jump in now. Survey says, look back to your leader, Austin Espety. This will really show where these guys are thinking in terms of fuel strategy. Espety says, nope, I'm coming in right now. So him, Holgate also going to drop down, and that's going to leave Vic Caudell out there on the fuel. But right now in, your two leaders, Espety and Holgate, they've made their way down onto pit road right now, looking for their box and to fill up on some Sunoco and some fresh Firestone Firehawks.
So the other thing to think about, though, is tire life. And here in these Indy cars, that is one of the big talking points, is when do you come down pit lane in terms of the tires. Also important to note in this series, they do run slightly less volume is allowed in the fuel tank. So Brandon Trost, he goes a long ways here on the fuel, as does Vic Caudell. So in this regard, they definitely have the advantage. But the other thing to really keep in mind is that tire life. Brandon Trost, he's going to opt to come down pit lane, as does Vic Caudell. He's going to follow suit. Everyone else pretty much runs in order. And now you got a handful of other cars coming down pit road. Joe Flanagan, Bradley Walters, pretty much everyone else, including John Downing, coming down pit lane for their scheduled pit stop. And looking out in front, Andrew Kinsella, he remains out in front of Tim Holgate after that first round of stops.
Yeah, he does, but really the biggest movers out of that stop was Austin Espety. So what happened? Holgate had a 31-second pit lane time there, lost a ton of time, not to mention a 9.3 in the box. Side by side for your lead right now, Marco Brazil and Austin Espety going at it there. That will be your lead here as they get around Brandon Trost. So that battle for the lead right now. Espety, a very good stop on pit road, only an 8.1 in the box, so an excellent job by him. But Marco Brazil had a little bit of a run. He was able to stay with Espety off of pit road, get in that draft, and that's all it took for the driver, the 812, to make it past the 777. Meanwhile, Trost came out third, and it looks like he might kind of get pulled back in around Andrew Kinsella and Tim Holgate. All those guys going to be in a group as well as battle for the lead continues. Espety looking to the inside off of turn number 3. Survey says not going to have much of a run, but he is going to make an attempt at it. Yep, he'll get in the slipstream, and that's all it takes. Down the inside goes the 777.
Here he comes, coming down into corner number 1, the number 777 Espety machine, and down to the bottom of the racetrack. The Trenton-style corner here at Pocono, he will pick up that race lead over Marco Aurelio Brazil. So as they run after your first round of pit stops, it's Austin Espety for Marco Aurelio Brazil, but Marco seems keen to try to reverse that again as they go into corner number 2. This time Marco down to the bottom. He's going to pick that spot back up from Austin Espety, and now down into corner number 3. What is the slipstream going to do this time? Who's going to decide to be patient first? Because eventually one of these guys has to just get okay with running second, Cisco.
I wouldn't break it to them like that quite, Randy. I mean, Austin Espety has been going after this lead this entire race. Marco Brazil has done an excellent job of defense, but he's also done a very good job at getting counterattacks. Meanwhile, Tim Holgate down to the inside. The 14 Andrew Kinsella, they'll be side by side. Coming off the first turn, Kinsella, bam, right into the wall. Saver barrier there, and shortens up that right rear spoiler even more. So that driver of the 14 is not taking, he's taking a little bit of liberty with the wall, and as a result, Holgate going to go around him there, and that's not going to be good for the driver of Kinsella. He can't keep doing that if he hopes to stay in contention.
One slight little scrape of the wall is all it can take in these cars to really put an end to your day, as Andrew Kinsella is going to fall back a little bit, and if he has a bit of aero damage already, this is going to be disastrous. We're only in the first quarter of this race. First quarter mark will be going by around lap number 33. So as they run down into corner number 1, Andrew Kinsella continues to lose a little bit of speed, and really the big worrying point has to be if he has significant aero damage. Just keeping an eye on the top speeds of these two drivers. Let's see what's it going to be here over the next couple of laps. Just keep an eye. The main things you want to keep an eye on, top speeds and the speeds through the corners. And Kinsella's a couple miles an hour down over Tim Holgate, but keep in mind, he's about 100 yards or so back.
Yeah, and that gap, you know, I'm looking through everybody. Everybody is pretty spaced out in this field apart from your leaders. Those are kind of your closest guys on track at the moment. You see Espety is able to draft them up, and now Trost is going to have to track these guys down and make that delta time work. He had a decent stop on pit road, but wasn't the fastest in the box, wasn't the fastest on the pit lane there. That actually went to Austin Espety, who swept both of those last time down on pit road. So Espety, very good job on pit road, allowed him to keep this lead and stay in draft range with Brazil. And that's huge right here as Espety jumps to the inside back into turn 3.
And just still focusing on Andrew Kinsella here, riding on board. Cisco, he has lost about 0.7 of a second since Tim Holgate got around him and since he scraped the wall. I think Kinsella has some pretty major damage on that number 14 machine. This could be championship's hope shattered for the 14 of Andrew Kinsella as he goes running off into corner number 1, now 1.6 seconds behind championship leader Tim Holgate.
Yeah, Kinsella, honestly, this is not a good way to go after your championship here. I mean, he's been driving everything he can out of the car, but the problem is this early on where he's hit the wall twice already, that is not good at all for the driver of the 14. And Holgate dropped 3 places, but him and Trost are starting to kind of draft together. They've been in this kind of accordion group, this battle pack, if you did, you know, and those guys are going to be able to work at least a little bit together if they want to, that is. If they can work together, draft up to your 2 leaders while those 2 are battling it out. This might be a 4-car battle for your lead here before too long.
Certainly could. We've seen that 1.1, 1.2 second gaps get reeled in. Keep in mind, Tim Holgate and Vic Caudill had approximately that much of a gap on the rest of the field at one point, and now you see Tim Holgate runs in 4th, 1.6 seconds off your leaders. Vic Caudill, he runs in 6th. Not been a good, second half of this race thus far for Vic Caudill. Cisco, 1 point, fighting for the race lead and led some laps. He currently sits in that 6th position, 6 seconds off your leader.
Yes, that's not really a great position to be sitting in right now, Randy. And when you're 6 seconds off the lead, you have to start thinking, do I go strategy here to try and make up that time, or am I going to have to do it on track? Either way, Caudill, for whatever reason, he has lost so much time, and I'm looking to see where exactly he lost it. Didn't look like he lost it on the stop. He was about a second off what Austin Espety did, and about a second and a half off on pit lane. So Caudill, just either way, that car just started to go away as soon as the run started. Right now, going around Andrew Kinsella right now is that driver of the 333. He'll make that pass very easily. Then Caudill is a very short run centered car, but I think the long run, I don't know if he can cut it.
Just keeping an eye on the lap times here. Race leader Austin Espety this last time by to the 41.784. Keep an eye on Andrew Kinsella and his situation, 42.387. So 0.6 of a second off is that number 14 machine of Andrew Kinsella, and that's basically going to be standard throughout the rest of the field. Everyone else is doing these mid to high 41s. Kinsella's dropped out of the 42s. So that little scrape of the wall, as you said, Cisco, well, the second or third we've seen from that 14 machine pretty much ended his race, as the race leader's still close through turn number 3, and Trost and Holgate still pretty much mirroring each other through 3 as well.
Yeah, and these two, you have to be careful if you're Holgate here, and I mean, it's Tim Holgate. He's going to be careful all day. Is Brazil going to go around Espety yet again? That may not even last this corner. Actually, it will. I thought Espety might be able to get a little bit of a counterattack, a crossover move to the inside, but you see the draft here. It's almost, super speedway-esque, and, this is technically a super speedway because we're over 2 miles here. So, the draft package so potent in these cars, like we said, like we talked about, very similar to Indianapolis. And, it allows for these guys, you're able to make the move 1 turn, but if you could stay in that draft range, that won't end too terribly soon. And you see Brazil lost a little bit of time to Espety, but now starting to close in that gap yet again is Marco Brazil. And Brandon Trost and Tim Holgate slowly starting to creep into this picture. And I think that's exactly where they want to be here. They're not, dicing up with the leaders where, if something happens, you get wrecked race car. No, they're just silent, waiting for something to happen or waiting for pit stops where they can make their move.
Yeah, they're just sort of like they are reeling them in ever so slowly, but it's to the tune of a couple of hundredths per lap. Not very quickly whatsoever for these guys. They go running into that 3rd corner once again. Espety and Brazil, they're going to go coming off that final corner as well. Down the long front straightaway once again. Gap between your top 2 is 0.343 last time. It's now 0.188. So about a 10th and a half is what Marco Brazil has been able to reel into that 777 as Austin Espety. And well, I think most of that's just going to be the slipstream, because these top 2, top 3, really these top 4, since the end of that first round of pit stops and those first few laps where we saw the top 2 fighting really hard, been pretty calm, pretty quiet between your leaders thus far.
Yeah, Tim Holgate and Brandon Trost, those two kind of been very calm. I thought there was going to be a little more battling, but as soon as Trost was able to maintain that gap in front of Holgate there, It's basically been single file between them, just kind of driving up towards the leaders. You know, the battle for the lead's been very different up until when Brazil got past that last time. For whatever reason, Austin Espetit was able to open up a huge gap on Brazil, and that basically allowed Brazil, he could get close, but he just couldn't pass the leader.
Look a little bit deeper down your field right now, and this is the fight between Vic Caudell and Andrew Kinsella. As Kinsella, we saw losing a bunch of time. I think I may have just heard someone hit the wall somewhere near the front straightaway. Not sure what that may have been. May have been someone on pit road, but the green flag is going to stay out. Cisco, you see
one
anything?
car off track there, Randy. One car off track. It's the 4 of Plunkett. I don't know if that was the car to which you were referring to, but either way, he's in the dirt, and he's parked it down there, kind of around where Steve Parkendale Jr. had their incident in 2002, kind of esque area, that green kind of Vanco barrier-esque area, and he decided to tow the car back to pit road. So for one, not sure what happened to the 4. We'll see if we can get a second look at it, but either way, it all went wrong. I think he just got loose out of turn number 1 and just went straight in the infield.
Well, there was something like he impacted something or popped the motor going into corner number 1, so I'm not actually sure what happened to Adam Plunkett. Very weird. Not sure if he hit something or if something broke on his end. Like, it sounded like something went pretty wrong, so not sure what's wrong with Adam Plunkett. He's going to be the 3rd driver we've lost today, the driver we've currently lost. Of the 17 that started, we have 14 drivers still on the racetrack, all of which are in the lead lap. Adam Plunkett, we just saw his issue where he pulled the car off of corner number 1. Tony Schoen, he sits in 16th, 7 laps down, and Niles Anders in 98. I actually missed. What happened to Anders? He was one of our leaders at one point, and now he's showing 13 laps down.
I'm not really sure. I'll have to go back and find out what happened. He hasn't said anything, at least on the radio. I'll pull back, let you know. I think it looks like he came down pit road normally. Oh, actually, no. Looks like there were actually issues for Anders. I'm not really sure what happened to the 98, Randy. Either way, he came down pit road and just kind of pulled over, stopped in his box, hopped out of the car, and went to the motorhome. So I got nothing.
Well, interesting nonetheless. Then as we're taking a look now at the top 10, gaining positions here, you see Austin Espetit up 6. Marco Aurelio Brazil up 4 positions from where he started. Brandon Trosto, the big gainer in the field, up 9 spots to put himself 3rd. Tim Holgate and Vic Caudell, they're each down 3 spots. Kinsella up 2, Branch down 3 as well. Bradley Walters up 3, and Joe Flanagan down 4. And John Downing, pretty boring race there for the guy in 10th there. Cisco started and is currently running in the same spot. That's disappointing.
Hey, I mean, you know, consistent days. So for John Downing, still plenty of laps left to go here. 90 laps to go at the line for Austin Espetit. So very, very much not over quite yet. And we're only about 40 laps into this thing. So Randy, I think he's got plenty of time to make moves, let something happen, and try and start to open up that gap. But one guy who has closed up a gap a little bit is Marco Brazil. That gap, at least he's been trying to close it here, but the problem is, at least on corner exit, I don't think he can. Austin Espetit's just been so fast in that area. Brazil looks to roll the corners a little bit better, but as soon as they get to turn number 3, it all goes away for Brazil.
That's one of the big things you can really, one of the big virtues of this racetrack. If you can be good on that end of the racetrack, particularly turn number 3, it can be really difficult for these guys to work passes on you, Cisco, especially when you take into account the dirty air. Going through that 3rd corner I would say turn number 3 here is probably the corner that affects you the most in terms of dirty air. Turn number 2 is close to being that level, but it's not quite as bad. But if you get a bunch of dirty air through turn number 3, you can just push right up the racetrack and completely ruins your run coming onto the front straightaway. That's why we see people having to take that weird line up along the top side of the racetrack. Simply put, the air isn't disturbed up there. As Marco looks to the inside down the short chute, but nowhere near close enough, still harassing the mirror of that 777.
Yeah, and for Brazil, this is kind of a case where you can almost go in fuel conservation mode because he's able to just use the slipstream, get to Austin Espetit, but he can't pass him. So if I was the driver of Marco Brazil, I'd use the opportunity, start following the line a little bit, just stay with the 777, save the fuel, save time on pit road. Not a bad, at least that's what I'm thinking if I'm the driver of the 812. The biggest place he's losing time, though, is definitely turn number 1. I thought it was turn number 3, but that one can kind of go either way for him every lap. Turn number 1 is really where he's just consistently not as good as Espetit. Turn number 2, his best corner right now versus the leader.
So through 3 they come once again. and everyone pretty much still single file. Let's take a look up and down the field a little bit. Vic Caudill and Andrew Kinsella, they're still close, fighting for 5th and 6th out there on the racetrack. Vic Caudill started 2nd currently, and as we said just a few moments ago, down into 5th. Kinsella started 8th, and he's up into 6th. So given his issues, he's done a good job to stay thereabouts. And I think, Cisco, one thing we can sort of infer here, the fact that Kinsella got that bit of damage after scraping the wall and fell back the way he did, since tucking behind the rear wing of Vic Caudill, he hasn't lost any more time to that number 14, excuse me, to that number 33 of Vic Caudill. I have a feeling for Kinsella, it's simply a drag issue, whatever that damage is. Doesn't seem to be harming him through the corners whatsoever. So that 14 machine, if he gets a restart, there is a slight chance if he can just, you know, stay as that 2nd car in line, 3rd car in line, and really keep the slipstream with someone, he might be able to retain a gap for a while.
Yeah, a little bit of a change position behind those guys. Bradley Walters just went around the Pennzoil machine of Joe Branch there. So Walters having a decent day, +4 for the driver of the 56. But Kinsella, at least it looks like from where I'm sitting, Randy, he's just thrown the tow rope out to that driver in front of him, Vic Caudill, and said, hey, just pull me around this track so I can save some fuel, because I don't think he wants to get out of that draft based on the damage, because there could be some aerodynamic deficiencies on that car. So I think for him, it's just a case of sit behind the car in front of me, save fuel, and then get that damage repair when I come down pit road.
Just had it on your screens on the exit of corner number 1. Joe Branch fighting with Bradley Walters. Very, very sideways. We seem to have a change of position up near the front. Is that people coming down on pit lane? Yes, it is.
Yeah, Brazil.
Mark Aurelio
Yep.
Brazil, and Kinsella as well chooses to come down pit lane. I believe that's Joe Branch behind as well. But Branch was fighting with Bradley Walters, and he got a little bit loose. He opts to come down pit lane immediately thereafter. So not a big surprise there, as a number of cars opt to come down in a pit lane. Esppetit, Trost, and Holgate, those three going to stay out, retain that top 3 spots.
Yeah, and Brazil now leaving the pit box 9.7 on the stop, so not as good as his first time on pit road. Kinsella now leaving as well. That driver going to get an 8.5, so not a bad job by that crew to get that car out. Meanwhile, leaders in Austin Esppetit was just able to make it in, and he's crossing the start-finish line right now, being scored in 3rd, and Vic Caudill now switching that to 4th. So Esppetit going to come in now. That'll leave Trost, Holgate, and Caudill, and Walters out there as your top 4.
So those drivers going to be the top 4 here as we're closing in on 50 laps to go. When do Trost and the Holgate opt to come down pit lane? And this is interesting to me, Cisco. This is the 2nd time we've seen from Brandon Trost opt to go a little bit longer than everyone else here. We saw him come down at the end of lap number 24 last time, so he could conceivably go a couple of more laps here. Compare that to Tim Holgate. We saw Tim Holgate down at the end of lap number 23, and they're both going to come down pit lane at the same time. Tim Holgate and Brandon Trost, they will both hit the pit lane simultaneously as your top 2 now hit pit lane. And let's see who is going to win the race off pit road this time.
I think it's going to be kind of a toss-up between these two. It's going to be very close. It'll come down to how much time they're spending in the box. Holgate does have the advantage where he doesn't have to maintain pit road speed. Well, or he'll throw it away by sliding through the box. So Holgate had to back it up, and it all went wrong for that driver. He'll lose a ton of time on pit road. Trost is gone already, and that's the difference it made. Holgate was kind of right there with Brandon Trost, but now he's lost all that time, and flashing fast right now goes Austin Esppetit. So looking like he's going to pick up the provisional lead here as well, with Vic Caudill, the only car not back in. Or Brazil going to go around Trost as well, but that put Trost right next to Brazil. So that pit road, that slower pit road for Brazil, that was huge for him. He lost about that cushion that he had back to Trost.
In a replay up of Tim Holgate's issues on pit lane, we see him come down now onto pit road here, just right behind that 007 machine, and just keep an eye on that gap. That's roughly the margin as they rolled down the front straightaway in the pit lane. You're going to see the 007. He peels off to the left first, get into his box. You see the bright pink pit crew right there, easily identified as Trost. Into the very front stall goes the 06, and well, simply put, didn't even get it anywhere near done correctly. And watch on the exit how much time he loses to that 007 of Brandon Trost. Wait for him on the right side of your screen. He is gone as the 06 is just getting out now. So big problems there for the 06 getting off pit road.
Yeah, it did not work at all for him. As we cut back to the live picture right now, Brandon Trost is thinking all about passing Marco Brazil down to the inside. Easy pass right there. Just needs to make sure it sticks coming out of turn 3. But Brazil, once again, very good on corner exit. He'll be there, and he's going to jump to the inside of Trost now. They'll go side by side towards turn number 1. Brazil will barely, no, he won't clear him as they head into turn number 1. That'll force Trost up the track and will allow Brazil to at least hold on that position for a moment. But here coming back already is Trost.
And look at the gap that this 777 Austin SPT has been able to open up after this round of pit stops here at Cisco, because we saw both Brazil and SPT be very, very close over the course of that last run. I mean, just look what happens here. SPT somehow, some way on pit lane, able to open up a 1.4 second advantage, and that's huge here at the start of the run as Trost and Brazil continue to fight here. They come off and now down the front straightaway.
Yeah, and Trost gonna jump to the inside this time of the car of Marco Brazil, and he's gonna clear him actually going into turn number 1. I wasn't sure if he was gonna be able to do it there. He nearly ran out of time to do it, but either way, Trost back in front of Brazil, so these two gonna be swapping positions, it looks like, for a little while here. And that means Brazil and Trost, if they continue to battle, that might bring Tim Holgate right back into this thing, and it could save him from that pit road blunder either way.
It's about 1.9 seconds the difference between Brandon Trost and Tim Holgate. No, I was right the first time. So that's roughly the error that costed Tim Holgate. As Brazil and Trost going to continue to fight down this front straightaway. Brazil wants to position back as they run down into Trenton, New Jersey, and through the inside goes Marco Brazil. He's going to pick that spot back up, and I think down Long Pond we can expect that 007 machine here, Cisco, to fight back.
Yeah, and I expect Trost to, at this point, he's going to be able to make that pass. Yes, he will. Very easy pass in the tunnel turn. Brazil will have to back out of the throttle a lot, and that was a lot of time right there, Randy. He lost about 3 or 4 car lengths right there going through turn number 3. Unless he gets a very good run, he might have just cost himself the arrow, and you could see Trost already trying to break the arrow kit on Brazil. Brazil's actually got a very good run out of turn 3, but that's a huge gap right there. That might have been that might be a little too far for Brazil maybe to sniff a draft. We'll have to see out of turn number 1. Oh, Trost had to get out of the throttle a little bit, very close to the wall. So Brazil not out of this quite yet.
Yeah, Brazil still not quite clear just yet, as Brandon Trost still doing everything he can to stretch that gap over Marco, but Marco seems to have a really fast race car under him, Cisco, because we've seen Marco Brazil a few times make a mistake or have a bit of a gap that he has to reel in. Remember that in that first run, it was about a 1.2 second gap between Holgate and Caudill and Marco Brazil, and he seems to be just able to reel gaps in whenever he chooses. He then reels in that 007 machine on the front straightaway. He makes that pass look easy as he goes running off down into corner number 1. I think Marco Brazil, with the exception of SPT, might have the best car on track today.
Yeah, and no, Trost got very close to the safer barrier that time. And remember, he had that incident during qualifying, so we know Trost isn't invincible here at Pocono. We saw him get into that wall earlier on, so keep an eye on that 007. He got close to that wall 2 laps in a row, so not sure if he's just trying to play a little bit with fire, but either way, Trost still continuing to hound the rear wing of Marco Brazil out of turn number 3, coming to 76 laps to go here from the Pocono Raceway.
Down the front straightaway again, Brandon Trost looks to the inside, going into corner number 1. They continue to swap positions back and forth here at the front of your field. Well, not quite the front of your field, but second for your field, and Brandon Trost will take that spot back very close to that outside wall on the exit of corner number 1, and down Long Pond they come once again. Marco Brazil again working the slipstream and into the inside. He comes once again through the tunnel turn. That was a little bit late that time for Marco Brazil, and I think that might have caught Brandon Trost a little bit off guard, because now that's given that number 812 machine a bit of a gap over Brandon Trost as they work through corner number 3, and on the front straight they come again. This time Marco Brazil have a gap he hasn't had and runs past.
Yeah, and Marco Brazil continuing, this battle just keep going at it, and it's making this very easy for Austin SPT because they're not gaining a whole lot of time on that driver of the 777, and that's going to allow Brazil and Trost, they'll battle it out. And I thought Holgate would be able to catch up at this point, Randy, but it just doesn't seem to be going his way. The driver of the 06, very consistent, but right now just hasn't been able to make up as much time as I thought. And Trost now looking to the outside this time of Marco Brazil as they head back into turn number 3.
Very close once again here. We're going to ride on board with Brandon Trost as they work themselves now down the front straightaway. And you see that Marco Brazil defending the inside, held the position 2-3 for the moment. But Brandon Trost is going to get down to the inside groove, and he's going to be able to make the pass here on Marco Aurelio Brazil. You see he comes up to that second spot. Marco's still close behind. You can hear him. We're going to cycle back and right on board with him. Brandon Trost, you see him going defensive here as they work themselves now down Long Pond once again. And in at corner number 2 they come. Trost defends to that inside groove. Through the exit of 2 in the tunnel turn they come. And Brandon Trost is now a little bit clear over Marco Aurelio Brazil, but through corner number 3 they're going to go. And this is where you're really going to get the slipstream if you're Marco Brazil. A little bit of dirty air, a little bit of push from that car on the exit of corner number 3. And for that reason, I think we might see that 007 be able to defend that second spot for, I think, the longest we've seen in a while, Cisco.
Yeah, and actually Tim Holgate's made up a bunch of time because of those guys going side by side through the corners. That's really where Holgate made up his time. And look, he's got a shot at it now, a little bit closer, and I think he'll actually be able to get in the slipstream of Marco Brazil. So I'm starting to wonder if these two, in battling with each other, maybe worn out some of the good out of those Firestone Firehawks, bringing Tim Holgate right back into this. And if they do, that basically saves Holgate from that pit road accident or that pit road miscue earlier on. It could put Holgate right back into contention of this thing.
Indeed, it could, as its battle for the top 2 is now becoming a 3-car scrap, as we see Marco Brazil very close to the back end of Brandon Trost, but he seems to have just lost that little bit of an edge when that slight mistake. And as they come off corner number 1, what can that 812 machine do down Long Pond as they go running off into that second corner once again? To the inside goes Marco Aurelio Brazil on Brandon Trost. And let's see what happens now. We've seen that inside pretty much everywhere be the preferred line. And this time, Marco picks up the spot pretty easily. See the 007 gets a bit of a run into that third corner. And they both thought for the high line. This could be a little bit of disaster, I think, for Trost. Bit of dirty air through that third corner. He may not have been expecting. Likely thinking Brazil would opt for the bottom.
Yeah, I think Brazil thought he was going to get a little bit more on there. Wasn't the case, but Trost now closing in big time onto the driver of Marco Brazil, and wasn't able to make anything happen through turn number 1 yet again. Hello, Marco Brazil. I don't know if he hit the wall. It was very close right there. I'm looking for damage on the 812, but that was extremely close nonetheless. But Trost is going to say, well, I don't know if there's damage or not. Either way, I'm going past. So Brandon Trost passes the 812, and moving the camera around, yes, there is a scuff on the right side of that 812, and that might have just thrown this in the way of Tim Holgate at this point. If that damage is even a little bit substantial, that could bring Holgate right back into this fight.
We rode on board with Brandon Trost there for that little bit of an incident that you saw that maybe got that bit of damage on Marco Aurelio Brazil, and I believe Brandon Trost and 007 kissed the wall as well. We're going to have to keep an eye on Marco Aurelio Brazil in that 812 because you have to go back and think about what happened to Andrew Kinsella. Very similar incident, Cisco. Slight tap of the wall and just caught the car incorrectly and pretty much broke the arrow on that car, and there's significant side pod damage, I would say, on the right-hand side of Marco Aurelio Brazil's number 812 machine. He might have one hell of a time trying to stay with that 007 to Brandon Trost. And really, he's already lost the slipstream as it is. And if he encounters the same issue that Andrew Kinsella had, if he needs that slipstream to be able to keep pace, he might just fall right back into the arms of Tim Holgate.
Yeah, he might fall right back into the arms of Tim Holgate. So Holgate at this point, he was getting a little bit closer, but those guys started to pull away from him. So I think Holgate at this point playing a little bit of a different strategy game. I'm not sure what's going through the mind of the 06, but there's always a strategy call. If Tim Holgate's not going for the lead, he's figuring something out. So keep an eye on that 06 because I don't think we've heard the last of him today.
No, I'm going to have to agree with that 100% as they go running through now the third corner, and Trost still being able to maintain this margin over Marco Aurelio Brazil. And I think the fact, because keep in mind how strong Brazil's car has been over the course of this race, Cisco. Granted, he was able to reel in a little bit of time right there, but we've seen Marco on a similar gap be able to just close right into the back of that 007 machine. And the fact he hasn't done it yet, I think pretty much speaks, pretty much immediate confirmation that car is a little bit bent.
Yeah, and this is going to be a case where I think Brazil at this point just sit it in cruise control. Don't try and push the envelope. You don't know. I mean, if you send that car into the corner on a very high stress situation, a very high paced corner, and you're to the outside, and suddenly that car breaks loose because of the damage, you could throw away the race right there. I'd say take it nice and easy. Just sit behind Brandon. Don't lose time back to Holgate. Just make this thing happen. Well, never mind. No, he's going to jump to the inside of Trost. So you know what? He's not going to take it easy. These two will continue to battle. So maybe that damage not as substantial as we thought, Randy. I think Brazil's just going after that second place position because I think he wants just to pass that car.
I think you're right as well. We're approaching halfway here. It'll be one more 2.5 mile lap around this place when they come off that third corner to take us to halfway. And now let's get a little bit of a midway race break. Just go through the top 5 here. Let's start with that 777 of Austin Espati. Not in championship contention here today. He sits now in that race lead after qualifying in 7th. Great start from that number 777 machine, getting himself into that lead spot.
Yeah, and that's right behind those guys, Brandon Trost and Marco Brazil. We don't really have to tell you too much because you guys been watching them this whole time. So that's that battle. Then you got Tim Holgate kind of lurking behind in 4th. 5th right now, Joe Branch with Andrew Kinsella moving the tow bar from Vic Caudell. He's put it on Andrew Kinsella, or put it on Joe Branch right now in that Pennzoil car. So Kinsella just pretty content to just ride behind the driver of the 28. And then you got Bradley Walters all on his own in P number 7.
Now, talking about the championship, we'll take a look at the points once again here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. And you see Tim Holgate leads by 30 points. Now, these are not as they run. This is as they were coming into this event. So keep in mind, once we go back to your ticker, where everyone lies. And as we said, Tim Holgate...
around goes Brazil. He's going to get tagged by Trost. Yellow flag's going to come out, and the battle ended in tears. Brazil got a little bit of a tap from the rear of Brandon Trost. A little bit too far. That car got loose, and Brazil ends up into the wall. He'll need a new nose cone at least, and it all went wrong.
Replay up on your screens right now as they go into that first corner. We were going to ride on board, but that's not going to be an optimal angle. As you see through corner number 1 they come, and you see Brandon Trost. He just tries to get to the back end of Marco Aurelio Brazil, and that sends him around, gets Marco a little bit loose, and pretty much Brandon Trost put the nail in the coffin there. We're going to get another angle on that. We're going to ride on board this time actually with Brandon Trost here as they're now again coming off this final corner. And as they go down this front straightaway, you can just watch. Marco's going to come up on your left-hand side of the screen. And then you're going to see that Brandon Trost in the 007 tries to just slot that car in line on the inside. He gets it a little bit wrong. The 812 gets a little loose, has to lift out of it. Well, that 007 machine pretty much sends him around. And, well, that's when your day done.
And Marco Brazil extremely animated on the radio right now. Not at all happy with the driver of Brandon Trost, and I honestly don't blame him. They're just kind of incidental contact there, but Trost tried to fire it in there, and just the closing rate was a little too great, and I think the 812 just kind of got that car a little bit kind of stalled in the corner a little bit. I think Trost thought he could follow him through. That didn't happen. So Marco Aurelio Brazil, that car in the garage area, loaded up on the truck. He's done and very unhappy right now with that driver of the 007.
Can't really blame Mr. Marco Aurelio Brazil, can you here? Because I have to agree with you. You know, Brandon Trost is someone in this community, in the IndyCar community. He's known for being aggressive, and he does sort of have a bit of a reputation that follow him. Think back to another race you and I covered here, Cisco. Remember what happened to Josh Chin at the Indianapolis 500? Sort of similar situation. Kind of Trost sticking his nose somewhere where it probably didn't belong, and well, it put someone with a contention for the win out of the race.
Yeah, it did, and now cars coming down pit road. Everybody going to be on the same strategy after this. Well, Dan Liench is going to stay out. That's your first car, 1 lap down, so don't worry about him. Everybody down to the pit road speed limit. This is your first time yellow flag caution pit stops. Huge. Going to put everybody back on the same strategy, on the same tires, and this is going to be a very important stop, at least for Austin Espati. Decently, no, he had to back up in his stall. I thought he went a little too far. He did. Tim Holgate, meanwhile, perfect stop in his box. Survey says coming out of pit road, Holgate's going to beat Trost. Yep, that's what the first spot on pit road can do. Holgate off, then you got Trost, then you got Espati. Espati lost 2 right there on pit road.
So that 06 machine of Tim Holgate goes from 3rd up to your race lead. Fantastic job there by the 06 of Tim Holgate. But as we're now halfway, it's been 68 laps for me and Cisco nonstop. We're going to take a moment and catch our breath here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. We'll see you in a couple moments here once we go back to green flag racing. Don't go away.
Watch Ernie, go, go, go. All right, all right.
When I sat in the car, you always wonder what's it going to feel like. You know, it was my first time driving a mid-engine GT car. You know, my thoughts were, wow, this is really good for our first time in a car. I was really surprised by it. You're sitting low, you got the A-pillars at steep angles, the windshield's at steep angles, you can see the fender flares. I think we have a chance to win. Everything's got to go right, but I think we have a car that can win the race or be on the podium. But can you imagine how cool that would be to go back 50 years later to the year and do it?
Welcome back here to RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live as we have to cut the time attack advert short. That's what happens when I don't get the timings of the adverts down as well as Mr. Hugo Louis has them. But back to racing here is what we're about to go, and you see single file the entire field. Brandon Trost very close to the outside there though of Tim Holgate. And the entire field now is going to work themselves off this third corner, and for the second time today, Tim Holgate is going to bring the field to green flag conditions. 06 gets on that go pedal, and we are green here at RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live, and the 06 of Tim Holgate seems to be kind of struggling here already. He looks swamped here, Cisco.
Yeah, it was not a aggressive start by the driver of the 06. Little side-by-side into turn number 1 right now. Advantage Holgate. Holgate will continue to keep that car down on the inside, but they'll stay side-by-side. Brandon Trost, a very good cut on the outside, and he'll lead as they head into the tunnel turn here. He's got to keep it up there if he hopes to keep that position. Holgate now back the undercut, and will he clear him? No, they're still side-by-side. That'll bring Joe Branch right into this fight as well. Austin Espety, Holgate down to the inside in turn number 3, and he'll hold on to it. Can he clear him? Yes, he can, but Trost now going to get the slipstream and go for a pass.
The 007 machine has just had a whole lot of practice at driving like this, whereas Tim Holgate's gotten a lot of laps just by himself as Tim Holgate almost comes under attack for that second spot, but no, that third place runner not going to go for it as they come off that first corner once again. Joe Branch fighting now for that third position with Austin Espety as well. And they're going to be 2 by 2 by 2 essentially up here as Tim Holgate slots himself on the inside on the run up towards that tunnel turn. You see your top two get somewhat separated as Trost has the lead. We're behind. It's just Espety from Branch, from Kinsella, from Flanagan as they go running off into turns number 3. And, well, Espety and Branch, they're going to fight for that third spot off that third corner.
Yeah, side by side, these two go down the front straightaway here, and Holgate going to surrender that first place position and actually get out of the throttle a little bit as the driver of the 06. He'll fall back, and I think trying to wind that car up so he can get a decent run on the slipstream back to the front straightaway. But those two fighting for third right now. They're side by side. Also throw Joe Flanagan. They'll almost go 2 by 2, but the 28 able to pull in right behind the driver of Austin Espety. Now Flanagan going to drop in front of Andrew Kinsella. Kinsella's got that damage repaired, at least fairly well in that 14 car, but Flanagan very poignant move up towards the field, and are they going to go 3 wide? Yes, Kinsilla's going to make it work, and that's what you can do on fresh tires. You feel like Superman when you're out there on those fresh Firestone Firehawks, and that's exactly what Joe Flanagan and Andrew Kinsilla tried to do. Flanagan made it happen on the outside. That was awesome.
3 wide for a moment, but they get it back to double and then eventually single file relatively quickly here. As you see pretty much the entirety of the field running themselves now down Long Pond straightaway into that second corner. You can see in the bottom corner of your screen that will shift focus over to it how close Tim Holgate is to the rear deck lid essentially of Brandon Trost. So they work themselves into that third corner. And now just under the gearbox is Tim Holgate. You see he has to run that car about a half car width up, still fighting with that dirty air. And Cisco, we haven't talked about it nearly enough. As an IndyCar broadcast, it's important to keep in mind that if you're Tim Holgate, anyone else in this field, as the fight is back on for third between Espetti and Flanagan, these guys are going to be playing with those in-car tools. Have the brake bias, of course, but not much braking to happen on a track like this. The main things you're going to be adjusting are your roll bars and that weight jacker to shift weight around in the car and how the car transitions weight to change the dynamics of the car, loosen it up, maybe tighten it up.
Yeah, exactly, and the fuel weight plays so much more of a factor in these cars versus any other car on the sim. You know, that weight jacker makes so much of a difference, and you're able to change so much on the dynamics of how you drive this Dallara Indy car. And now it looks like Joe Flanagan going to finally lose out that position to that driver of Austin Espetti, and behind him going side by side. But you know, it's the series allows you a lot of control as a driver, being able to put and tune that car to how exactly you want it, Randy, and doing it during the race. It can have dramatic results. You can see guys who are kitted out a little too aggressively on the aero kit. You can see them just flat spin out if they got everything wrong, or you can in turn, or on the opposite side of that, you can see him push all the way up to the wall as the battle continues. Vic Caudell tried to make something happen. That right there, extremely tight through turn number 3. That was just completely different line for Caudell. It did not work in his favor.
No, it didn't at all, and you see him drop back just a little bit because of that, as Kinsella is now stuck under that rear, just off the gearbox, actually, excuse me, of Joe Branch. As through this first corner, they're going to come, and you still see everyone trying to fish and fight for that clean air where you can get it. It's why you see these cars essentially staggering themselves off as they run through these corners. It's one of the big things, big talking points here, Cisco, because as well as you have the in-car tools, you also have other adjustments you can make to the car on pit lane, one of which, of course, tire pressures, but the big one tends to be wing angle. You can add more front and rear wing into this car. You can either put that front wing, you can add front wing to, if you're fighting a tight situation, not very good in the clean air, add a bit, in the dirty air, add a bit of front wing. That can certainly help your situation. As Joe Flanagan, he's going to look to put the moves on that number 777 of Austin Espetti. They're going to come up off that first corner, but Espetti has a good run here. But you can play with the aero adjustments in the car if you want to shift that balance around. Also play with the tire pressures as well, as Kinsella and Branch, they're going to fight, and just ahead of them, Espetti and Flanagan are going to fight. They don't want to let us speak.
No, that's exactly. They just want, the longer these guys fight, the easier it's going to be for Holgate and for Trost to be able to just pull away from this field. And all credit to Flanagan. It's done an excellent job up here, but the problem is he keeps racing these guys. And I'm sure if I'm Austin Espetti, I'm like, dude, come on, just give me a break. We got to catch up to the leaders. We're fighting for third. So I think for Joe Flanagan, he's going to try and grab that position from Espetti for as long as he can, because this has been an excellent run for him all day today. And Flanagan started in that 5th position. He's back up to 4th, kind of fell through the order earlier on, but an excellent job by the driver from Carolina.
Yeah, great job from him as well. And you have Joe Branch also, who's sort of, he's had a similar race really to Flanagan. They started in similar situations. Actually, Branch started P4, Flanagan started P5, so similar points on the racetrack. They both kind of fell back early, and now they find themselves in the same gaggle of cars, all fighting for positions here as they go running down this front straightaway once again. And you see Vic Caudell get a bit of a run, but no, he's not going to put the moves on him, as still Flanagan fights with Espetti. Meanwhile, out in front, just kind of checking in, your top 2, Holgate's got that 2nd spot. He doesn't seem too keen to get the job done, as I think we just saw on the corner of your screens. I believe that was Kinsella making another mistake.
Yeah, and Kinsella just, it doesn't, I see a little bit of damage on the right side. He's going side by side with Joe Branch right now, but Kinsella just, at this point, he just needs something to go his way a little bit. 50 laps to go when we get to the line, or 51 laps to go once we get to the line, and Branch going to be able to hold off the driver of the 14, so Kinsella drops in behind. Kinsella's just not had anything go his way thus far. I think he just needs the racing gods to just throw him a bone a little bit here, because he's been very strong all day, has just not had things his way though.
Indeed, and he's not going to have a lot of time to get that bone thrown to him here as we're working now up on inside 50 laps to go. 50 to go this next lap around this racetrack, and it's been a long one thus far, but it's been a clean one. Only one caution. We see what I think it was 3 or 4 rounds of green flag pit stops. Actually, that's one thing we haven't thought about here, Cisco. Well, they came down pit lane. It would have been lap 69. Actually, somewhat interestingly, in terms of strategy, that caution really doesn't change much, because you saw everyone pretty much coming down around lap number 23, lap number 24. That caution hit basically at the tail end of that last run. If they were short to begin with, they're not going to be able to make it from the end regardless of that yellow.
Yeah, no, they're not going to make it to the end regardless of that yellow. So another pit stop still in the cards for these guys, and we've seen Tim Holgate drive through his box already. We saw Espati do it earlier on, so pit stops have not been flawless for these guys all night. You need that last pit stop, though. If you are going to come down pit road, that one definitely needs to be flawless.
Now, here's an interesting talking point here. They're going to come running off. Actually, no, I take that back. I got my numbers wrong. It's going to be 2 pit stops minimum here, because we've seen about 23 to 25 laps be about the fuel window as we're watching Flanagan continuing to fight with SPT. That we went back to green flag racing at the start of lap number 70. And so you think about that fact, about 25 lap runs, that takes you to lap number 95, then to lap 120. So you have at least one more full stop here, Cisco, plus a splash and dash for about 10 laps of fuel. And really, for these guys who have been able to go that extra handful of laps, one person who comes to mind is that 007 of Brandon Trost. He might just have a bit of an ace up his sleeve if he can make that a 6 or 7 lap run as opposed to 10 to 11.
Yeah, and this might be something, Randy, where if you need to get out of traffic, if you've been stuck in traffic, you maybe find someone in the pack that you're running with decently well. You say, hey, let's try and sure pit. Let's go the opposite way. Do this backwards. You might actually be, you might be able to pull off something like that. But I think if I'm one of these guys fighting for the championship, I don't know if I necessarily should deviate from Holgate and try and make something else happen, or if I should just follow him, hope something goes my way.
Well, the thing to keep in mind is that of the championship contenders, only a couple of them have led laps, and those 2 are currently running number 1 and 2. And the thing to keep in mind that the person with the most realistic chance of winning this championship, other than Tim Holgate, was Andrew Kinsella, and Kinsella sits in that 7th spot. And Kinsella's win condition was that he had to win the race, and Holgate had to finish off the podium. Kinsella currently sits 7th, and Holgate sits 2nd. So it seems that we're not going to have that situation. I think we saw a car almost spinning here on the exit of corner number 1. Yes, we do. Vic Caudill damaged car on the inside of that first corner. Replay coming up on your screen now.
Yeah, Caudill just looks like problems for the driver of the 33, and just lost it. Turn number 1 claims another driver there. So the driver of the 33 has not been happy all day, and I think that was the case. Yeah, he just got too tight, got right in the wall, and very similar to the incidents where we saw guys brushing that, he just flat out pounded the wall, and huge damage to the DHL machine, so that'll knock him straight out of this race.
Interestingly enough, no dirty air for Vic Caudill. So that to me leads me to believe here, Cisco, that under that yellow flag pit stop, he may have dialed a little bit of front aero out of that car, because we are approaching what a lot of these drivers start to think as the end race situation, in terms of when do you start thinking, okay, I need to, you know, the end of the race is coming up. You know, the last couple runs, I need to start trimming a bit of aero out of this car to really get, you know, so that on that final pit stop, likely that final full pit stop, I can know what I need and I can get that aero adjustment in. It seems to me that he may have just took a little bit too much front wing out of that car, and like you said, all he did was just plow into that wall at the exit of corner number 1 with plenty of clean air out in front.
Yeah, plenty of clean air out front of the leaders here, so these guys don't have to worry about it. And if I'm Tim Holgate, I'm in a slightly better fuel scenario, I think, than Brandon Trost, because Trost's been leading this whole thing. Holgate's been kind of sitting behind, letting him kind of take the lead, set the pace. If I'm Holgate, I can kind of alter my driving style at that point, Randy, either use the slipstream or gauge when I'm starting to fall back and apply power when I need to get back up to him, and kind of, you know, dictating my pace versus his pace. So I really like the position that Tim Holgate is sitting in right now. honestly, I think he's in the catbird seat to maybe try and steal this thing from Brandon Trost right at the end.
Well, Tim Holgate has become a master of this. We've seen this in him in so many different IndyCar series. He's sort of standardized. Well, maybe not standardized, but he is one of the best drivers on the sim at saving fuel here. There's a few others that are up around that. I think Joshua Chin here in these Indy cars tends to, I would argue, is probably the best fuel saver that I've ever seen in the sim. But Tim Holgate is, very similar situation. We've seen Tim Holgate go to entire races where he just buries himself under the gearbox of another driver and just saves fuel the entire way, and then he's just able to short fill it there at the end, and that's how he picks up a race win. So Holgate is just at home right now. Compare that to Brandon Trost. The 007 of Brandon Trost, well, he's known for being aggressive, and he might have, he has a reputation that follows him, we'll just say it that way. He is also known for a couple of other things, and Trost is really known for driving a car with a lot of aero on it. He's generally not someone who has that car really trimmed out, and for that reason, he can usually, make other parts of the racetrack work. But that's going to work two ways against him. One, if he has that car really trimmed out, he may not be able to win if he gets into a draft fest situation coming to the race win. And number two, fuel economy. Got more air wing on that car, you're going to burn more fuel. Might be more difficult for the 007 to make it to the end off a similar strategy.
And these are all factors that Tim Holgate's already factored in when he's sitting in this car. This is, if not one of the most successful drivers in this Dallara Indy car here on the iRacing service. Holgate knows all this. He could just sit up. He knows the game plan. He's got this. He's done this so many times before. This is a very Tim Holgate-esque strategy. Sit in second, let the leader dictate the pace, and let the race come to me. Tim Holgate has made so many race wins happen out of strategy like that. This is perfect for him, I'm thinking right now. Brandon Trost, I think, is where he wants to be leading this thing, because that's just Brandon Trost. So I think Tim Holgate is where he wants to be. Brandon Trost is where he wants to be. I think also, though, Austin Espetti wants to be up with those guys, and I think that's what he needs to do. He needs to start pushing, I think, get with those leaders, because I don't know if you're necessarily... I wouldn't want to hope that someone messes up on pit road. I want my destiny to be in my control, not in the control of somebody else.
And on the topic of pit lane, you see some people coming in and down pit lane on your screens right now. Andrew Kinsella, Bradley Walters, Vinicus Gotardello, they're going to be the drivers to come down on a pit lane first. And what this is going to give them here, Cisco, is... I think the plan for them is to do two 20-lap runs to the end, because they come in and start a lap number 90 of a 130-lap race. Brandon Trost, he's going to opt to come down on a pit lane as well, and I think this is a little early for these guys, because we went back to green flag racing on lap number 70, so a lot of people, maybe a slight underfill on that last pit stop, maybe not, but people coming down pit lane, maybe trying to work a little bit of an undercut, but instead of having to do a 10-lap run and a 25, 26-lap run, they just want to do two 20-lap runs. You see Tim Holgate struggling a little bit with lap traffic. Vinicus Gotardello very close, and they run down into that tunnel turn. Lap traffic fighting with race and championship leader here as they work themselves into corner number 3.
Yeah, Holgate, I think either this or next time by may not be a bad idea for him to hit pit road here. He apexes very wide out of the corner. Nope, he's going to stay out there. So Austin Espetti, meanwhile, going to come down behind Tim Holgate. He'll make it on a pit road. Looked good on speed. Joe Branch going to be close. No, he's good on pit road. So Espetti and Branch are down here. And Trost, meanwhile, is back out on track. He's sitting in that 5th place position. So Holgate continuing to lead this field. And I think this is exactly what Holgate had in mind. You stretch this fuel stop, less time you have to sit on pit road later on, Randy. You can have the race just come to you towards the end of this thing.
And the thing you have to think if you're Tim Holgate is that you can look in front of, if we ride on board with Tim Holgate for a moment, you're going to look out in front and you're going to see a lot of lap traffic. You see 3 cars coming off turn 3 just in and of itself, and there's a handful of cars further down that long front straightaway here at Pocono. The thing to keep in mind is that those guys all just came down pit lane and got fresh rubber. They're going to be stretching the gap over this number 06 machine more than likely over the next 10 or so laps. And so for that reason, if you're Tim Holgate, you're not going to think of that traffic the way you normally would. Normally, you'd look at that traffic and be like, I need to hit pit lane. I don't have any clear track in front of me. As far as pace is concerned, Holgate's going to be able to sit out here and run some laps all by himself in what is essentially clean air.
Yeah, and for Holgate, he's not really catching that lap traffic, Randy. So for him, it's not really a concern if one of them, well, never mind, actually, Tim Holgate just going to come down pit road. So throw that point I was going to try and make out the window.
Get right.
Now this is the question. Where is Holgate going to come out versus Trost? Was he able to build any time on there, or is he going to come out behind Trost just as he was before? Either way, 06 looking for the pit box here, and he'll pull in left hand. Yep, last pit box, and survey says very good entry for him. Didn't slide through the box, and Firestone Firehawk skin down the car right now. And now we look, where is Brandon Trost? He's crossed the start finish line. Holgate exiting pit road right now. That's the gap for the lead right there. Holgate gonna lose a lot of time to Trost, and I think he actually would probably tell you he was planning on that, because that was a kind of longer stop for Holgate there. But fresh tires, Trost was able to just hot lap that thing versus Holgate, who hasn't really done that. But keep in mind, Holgate still has the fastest lap in this whole session.
I think you're absolutely right, though, talking about the fact that that was pretty much scheduled there from Tim Holgate, because it was a little bit of a longer stop. And I think right now, if you're Tim Holgate, the way you're thinking about this race is, you don't have to win this race. You don't have to go out and you don't have to fight tooth and nail with Brandon Trost. You can let Brandon Trost, you can open up, do exactly what he just did. Open up a 4-second gap or so for Brandon Trost and still be just fine. Because Trost, I think, maybe a slight short fill. Because there's two ways you could really approach this. You could try to do two about 20 lap runs, which is what we talked about. The other thing you can do is you can potentially underfill the car and then overfill the car on the final stop, so you get a really, really short pit stop. Looking at the gaps between Trost and Holgate and then SPT as well, I think that Trost is likely on the shorter end in terms of fill time in that regard. So I think for Trost, we're going to likely see a full pit stop for his final stop here in about 20 laps time. But I think the other thing for Tim Holgate, you know that if Brandon Trost wins this race, you'll still win the championship unless you finish, I think it's something like 16th. That's
Brandon, not even possible anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get a double check. I was just pulling. Joe Branch gave us a little bit of a briefing, and given the situation, I was like, oh, there's probably no way that's going to happen. But regardless, Brandon Trost still might win this race. But Tim Holgate, unless he gets DNF'd, the worst he can finish right now is 11th.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is basically in the bag right now for Tim Holgate. He just needs to cruise, and I think that's exactly what he was thinking, Randy. Stay out a little extra, come out behind Trost, but in your own kind of area there. The closest car to him is going to be Austin Espity, and then it's another huge gap back to Joe Branch. So for Tim Holgate, it's clear track all day long, and well, it may look a little boring for him. That's exactly how he wants it, because he's got nobody around him.
So this is what we got from a briefing from series admin Joe Branch, and that's Trost has an outside chance of winning the championship, but he has to win the race, and Holgate has to finish 17th or worse. So now, just given the fact that the points that the race has gone the way it is, that there's a handful of people who have not finished the race already that are more laps down than what are currently remaining, Brandon Trost cannot win this championship mathematically. So if you're Tim Holgate, you're pretty much thinking, okay, I would wager that someone with Tim Holgate's racecraft likely already knows that, already has that in the back of his mind, and now he looks backwards. Okay, who's the next one in order that's be likely to potentially get me? Andrew Kinsella? Oh, he's 6 seconds behind me. I can pretty much just cruise. And then you have Joe Branch. Branch is someone who could potentially take this championship away from Tim Holgate as well. But that's another sort of dark horse sort of situation. Joe Branch needs to win the race, and Holgate would need to finish 6th or worse, which looks like, well, it looks more likely they're going to finish in the opposite of what would need to happen for Branch to win this championship.
Yeah, and at this point, this is, we're talking about all these different things that could happen. And basically, all of these possibilities won't really happen unless something happens to Tim Holgate or there's a yellow. So either way, for Holgate, this is exactly where he wants to be. He is in complete control of his destiny. There's nobody around him. And right now, it looks as though he's just going to cruise in second all the way to his championship and not even have to worry, Randy. And that has got to be a comforting feeling for that driver of the 06.
Watching a little bit of a closer battle here in your mid-pack. This is between Bradley Walters, Andrew Kinsella, and John Downing. These three cars all within about 0.4 of a second as they go running down Long Pond and into the tunnel turn here through corner number 2, and off the second corner they come. You see Kinsella fighting with Bradley Walters, trying to find some way, somehow, to maybe get by, but I think that damage on the 14 machine, Cisco still really holding it up. And you see through that third corner, people fishing for clean air yet again. We've been talking about that all race long, and now inside, well, going to be 30 laps to go next time by. We're approaching that window where you can do this race on one more stop. I think that lap number 25 is where I would feel safe knowing you can get to the end. So if a yellow wants to make this interesting, it better fly right now.
Yeah, it would have to fly right now for something like that to happen. How about a 3-car battle in this battle? Because right now, we talked about Walters and Kinsella. We'll throw John Downing in this as well. Downing +2 now. You said he was running 10th earlier on where he started. Well, he's +2. So like I said, he was able to make things happen, and it's going to be a 3-car battle here. You see Kinsella jump to the inside. Nope, nothing there for him. 12, meanwhile, John Downing goes way down in the apex. Lost a little bit of time there, but Kinsella, Walters, and Downing, that's your closest battle. Basically anybody in this field right now, apart from the guys directly in front of them, Joe Flanagan and Joe Branch.
So Dom Mazzetti definitely a fan of John Downing right now because an overall gain of +2. Those are some pretty solid positive gains. Let's see if there's anyone who understands that reference here. We're going to look back out front a little bit. And still not a lot of fights. The next fight that's happening up near the front, though, is a bit of an interesting battle. This is between Joe Branch and Joe Flanagan. The battle of the Joes for here at the tail end of your top 5. This is for 4th and 5th on the racetrack. They worked themselves through the 3rd corner. That Pennzoil machine seems to be able to just steer clear of Joe Flanagan just well enough, and he's been able to maintain that gap over Flanagan here.
But this is where the slipstream comes into effect. It's very late effects here on when you go into the front straightaway. I think the biggest issue right now is Flanagan, for whatever reason, is not apexing the corner like, you know, how a lot of these drivers are. He's taking a very wide arc through there, maybe just trying to save some of the rubber on those Firestone Firehawks. Maybe might be trying something a little bit strategy-wise. I'm not really sure, though, what the call on the 53 is. Either way, I would think he'd be making a full fuel stop here pretty soon, so I don't really see the what he's trying to do, but either way, he's up to something, trying different lines, trying to find speed wherever he can on Joe Branch. And meanwhile, that battle behind them of Kinsella and Walters still going on as well, but Flanagan just doesn't look like he has the car to be able to get by Branch at the moment here, Randy.
I think talking about Flanagan, as you're right, we are watching this 3-car scrap once again. The thing to keep in mind is that we don't really know what anyone's doing, because really what you do on this stop is really going to be dictated by what you did on the last stop. We saw everyone come down pretty much after a bit of running, and it's basically, you know, did you fill the car up at that point, or did you short fill so you'd had a, then have to do a full stop to take you to the end, or did you maybe do a fill to split yourself to the difference? I think Brandon Trost, he's one of those ones that's likely going to be the first down pit lane, just the fact that we saw him be so much better off of pit lane than everyone else. Now, granted, it is possible that it's not out of the realm of possibility that he just simply wasn't better than everyone else on the brakes, but I think it's likely that he short-filled in addition to that. But still, what we're going to see off this final stop could make this last 24, 25 laps so very interesting, as we are pretty much now inside that pit window.
Yep, and the question is, who is the first guy who's going to make that move? Is it going to be Brandon Trost in that 007? No, not this time anyway. So either way, everybody going to stay out at least for the moment here. Next lap, Randy, you said is when you're going to be safe. I have to think these guys maybe going to wait a little bit longer here to see if they get a little bit better tires. But either way, this is shaping up that this last stop is going to basically control the destinies of several drivers here as to who's going to win this championship, who's going to come out wearing their battles. You know, that Kinsella, Walters, and Downing battle that was continuing on. Downing's kind of actually fallen off those guys a little bit, but this last stop will really kind of set the pace for what the last 20 or so laps is going to be like in this race.
The longest run I think we've seen thus far has come from Brandon Trost, which is 24 laps. So you're right. It's going to be after this lap, the start of this one, where the window's really going to open. So now a full stop should be able to get you to the end. 23 to 24 has been about the mark that everyone else has had. Now that said, I think you can potentially go a little bit longer. Generally, these guys, I won't say they'll short stop. They've got one car heading in the pit lane right now in the background. I believe that's the 14 of Andrew Kinsella. Yes, it is. So the window apparently, it would seem, opens now as the 14 machine of Kinsella hits pit lane for what should be his final stop in the Indy Elite Series here in 2017.
Yeah, and this stop going to be so important here, and you want to make sure you get it right, Randy. We've seen a couple guys go through the pit stall. You want to make sure you're taking all your fuel, all the tires, everything's checked, everything's ready to go, and you've had plenty of time to do so if you're some of these guys out there kind of all alone, you know, driving around like Tim Holgate, Austin Espity, Brandon Trost. Those are the guys, you know, they've had time to set up their pit stops. Everything's going to be looking okay for those drivers. And after that, at that point, just make sure you don't speed. You definitely don't want to speed, because that would throw away your race completely here, this pit road so long here at Pocono Raceway. You want to make sure you don't speed. You want to make sure you don't slide through your box, and you want to make sure you're in the right gear and you don't stall it in the pit box either.
Yeah, definitely a lot of things you need to be aware of. Keeping an eye on that 007 of Brandon Trost off the third corner. He comes, and will he come down pit lane? No, he won't. He will stay out again. We will now shift focus to Tim Holgate. Will he come down pit road? No. Austin Espati, he will stay out another lap. What about Joe Branch? He's going to stay out. Joe Flanagan, he stays out as well. So your top 5 yet to come down pit lane just yet. Bradley Walters is next in line. Then John Downing, Robert Gortz, Nickis Gordello, Andre Selk. Everyone is going to stay in line right now who are currently still on the lead lap. Your top 10, Andrew Kinsella, the only car to come down on pit rate. And Kinsella, he's yet to lead the pit stall, and he is out of his car. So number 14 machine, end of his season already, Cisco.
I guess he's decided he's done, so nobody in that car, and has ran over to the motorhome. So either way, the 14 sits idle, nobody in that car on pit road. So this championship picture just got a whole lot more interesting, because at this point it's Joe Branch who really is the only guy who even has a shot at this thing. And actually, I'm looking at it now, I don't think even he has a shot at this. That might have just locked this thing up for Tim Holgate completely.
There is still a chance for Joe Branch to win this championship, but some very specific things have to happen. Basically, your top 3, Brandon Trost, Tim Holgate, and Austin Espati, just looking at the gaps, have to somehow either get into a major incident, and I don't know how 3 cars 5 seconds apart are going to get into a single incident. Either that has to happen, they have to completely botch the strategy, or there has to be a lot of errors on pit road, because the way things have to work, Joe Branch has to win this race, and Tim Holgate has to finish 6th. And Brandon Trost running as well as he is, that might also cost Joe Branch's opportunity to finish third. Actually, no, I take that back, because Kinsella parking it is going to put him well down the order. So that should put Branch comfortably into 2nd. As we go and watch your leaders once again, everyone again running out near the front, cycles through pit lane.
Apologies about that. I accidentally tapped my microphone, but I'm looking at it. Bonus points, well, pole position led the most laps. Apologize on that one as well. Those have already been locked up, and they're not going to Joe Branch. So, I mean, the key is the gap between Holgate and Branch, at least in the championship right now, that's 40 points. And you can't get a 40-point gap right now the way the race points lay out. You know, Holgate would have to finish 20th, and Branch would have to win if he hoped to get that many race points. That's not happening, Randy. I think mathematically, Holgate's got this.
I think you're right. Joe Branch decides to come down on a pit lane, though. So he's really the first of your race leaders you've seen come down on a pit lane. Andrew Kinsella was another one, but he's not yet come down on a pit lane. So his season is over by the looks of things. But inside 20 laps to go, series admin Mr. Joe Branch, he looks to make his final pit stop of the season. He's going to roll into his box nice and clean, and I think he just wants to make a nice and clean final 20 laps, as we still are going to keep an eye on everyone else out here on the racetrack. Brandon Trost is the next one we need to see come down pit lane. He still is yet to come down, so maybe, you know, just fantastic green flag pit work for that 007 that last time down the pit road. 06 doesn't stop as well. Austin Espati, Joe Flanagan, Bradley Walters, everyone but Branch coming down pit road that last, well, no one's come down this pit road just yet besides Branch.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is a case where this is now, we're talking about race win here, Randy, because the championship, that's been locked up, and I do believe Andrew Kinsella has joined us, so I'm going to see if we can pull him in here and get a word with that driver of the number 14, and Andrew Kinsella pulling him into the booth now. And Andrew, we saw you park the car on the pit road. What happened?
It started out pretty early. Was racing with Holgate and just was a little too high through one, and got some side pod damage, and I was able to draft okay, and I thought I was going to be able to keep up, but obviously there was a little bit more damage than I thought, and I was just following along behind Bradley there, and again just got a little too high, and this time caught some suspension damage, and just figured it better park it before I do any more damage.
Not the way you wanted this championship season to end, but still a great run for you regardless in the championship. I believe as they run right now, you would come out of Pocono either second or third. I think we're leaning more towards third right now, depending on how the points fall and where Joe Branch finishes. But either way, and Randy, keep in mind, Brandon Trost just hit pit road, so we'll keep an eye on the 007. But Andrew, I'll give you a chance. Shout out sponsors, anyone you want to say hello to for the last race of the season here.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say congratulations to Tim, Joe, and Brandon. It's been an awesome championship, a lot of fun to drive this, and particularly Joe, who puts this on. He does an amazing job organizing Apex InfoTech for the title sponsor, as well as PlastiDipGarage.com, who came on with me midway through the season. Very thankful for them, and of course my team at Absolute Power Slide. As you can see, Austin's got a really strong car, and still hoping for the best from him.
All right, well, that's Andrew Kinsella. Not the finish he wanted, but still a strong run here at Pocono. Andrew, congrats, and we'll see you next season.
Thanks, Cisco.
That's Andrew Kinsella, and meanwhile, during that, Randy, we saw a couple cars come down pit road, as he alluded to. Austin Espety came down, as did Brandon Trost. Trost continues to lead that group that will cycle to the lead. The question is now, where does Holgate come out with that group? These guys don't have to worry about fuel. I think Holgate's going to try and short fill this last part and just fly on those new tires.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the goal here for the 06 of Tim Holgate. And this is actually somewhat, this is going to be the opportunity for the 06. He's going to come down pit lane a couple laps later. The question has to be, how much gas does he have left in the tank? We have to keep an eye on that 007 of Brandon Trost. He currently runs into the tunnel turn, and the thing to keep in mind is this will not be a full stop for anybody. Tim Holgate included, Brandon Trost as well, as he's going to run down now to that very first pit stall here on pit lane. Brandon Trost, he's going to cycle off that third corner and onto the front straightaway. How long is Tim Holgate sitting in the box? Waiting, and he will now get released to get back down onto the start-finish straight. And well, here comes Brandon Trost down your start-finish line into corner number 1. He will easily pick up the race lead. So it's not going to be a fight for the win here for Tim Holgate. Cisco, Brandon Trost is more than well clear. But inside 15 laps to go, Tim Holgate's thinking about bigger pastures.
Yeah, Holgate would have to hot lap here if he had a shot, if he had any sort of shot at Brandon Trost right now. Holgate's actually the closer battle here is going to be Holgate and Espety, because Espety had a very good pit road stop. And to put in perspective, Tim Holgate was 7 seconds in the pit box. Trost was 1.4 seconds longer, but it didn't matter because of how big that gap was. Brandon Trost is on the afterburners at this point for him. He's just going to make it through the end of this thing. And Austin Espety in with a shout here to be able to challenge Holgate here for that second place position.
That he is. Joe Brandt has also cycled himself up into that 4th spot as they're approaching the last 10 laps of this season. Joe Flanagan, he rounds out the top 5 here. So Brandon Trost, one of the drivers we talked about, Cisco, and maybe it was reverse psychic nature here. We watched him qualify not so well, put himself 12th, and you're like, oh, that's, we both said that wasn't going to be good for him. Well, plus 11 for Brandon Trost today. He currently leads, approaching 10 laps to go.
Yeah, approaching 10 laps to go. That was 13 at the line for the driver of the 007. So Trost at this point, he charged his way through the field. He's plus 11 on the day, which is a huge undertaking. Started 12th, and that driver was able to make his way. Wasn't in any incidents apart from the one caution flag that we saw. And for the most part has kept his nose clean, all considering, and has worked his way through the field and is now leading this thing and putting down some of the fastest laps right now. Though I will let you know, Tim Holgate did go blue last time. He's the fastest guy out there on track at the moment, and he does have the purple time in this race tonight. But Tim Holgate, I don't know if that's going to be enough to track down Trost. It will, however, open up that gap between himself and Austin Espety, who Espety's still about 3/10 off the lap times that Tim Holgate's running. You're not going to make that up, Randy.
No, that's going to be something you really have to struggle. Just looking here at Tim Holgate and Brandon Trost, looking at the lap times, it was about 2.5 tenths that Tim Holgate cycled out of Brandon Trost here that last time. And here we're just outside of 10 laps to go. Going to be 11 laps to go at the stripe. And if he can reel that gap in about that amount every single time through, Tim Holgate actually has a really outside chance of reeling in Brandon Trost. As they come across the stripe here, let's see, what does Brandon Trost do? A 41.491. It's going to be for Tim Holgate a 41.262. So another couple tenths goes away at Tim Holgate. He's not keeling over and dying just yet. That number 06 machine has found a little bit of life here in the last 15 dozen or so laps of this season, and he's reeled that gap in from about 2.5 to 3 seconds down inside about 2.5.
And as he tries to track down the leader, a little bit of a change in position. Bradley Walters losing out to John Downing in the number 12. Downing going to pick up 6th place from the driver of the 56, and Walters going to try and fight back. But Downing looks to be set here and starting to pull away from the driver of the 56. So up to 6, John Downing, plus 4 on the evening. Very good, and very similar story for a lot of drivers. Go to Dello, Gortz and Ensch, as well as Downing and Walters and Esppetit, they're all +4 on the night. So +4 appears to be the magic number of the racing tonight, at least.
So, interesting that a lot of that is really panning out. As we'll get here on your side screen, the gain of drivers once again inside of the top 10. You see there a lot of drivers showing +4. You see Downing, Walters, Gotardello, and Gortz all +4, as well as Esppetit, and then of course Brandon Trost. You basically add those all up, and they come very close to 11, but not quite. As going down the front straightaway, here goes Tim Holgate once again, and I'm still just keen here on
it's about
looking
2/10
and maintaining the laps again. And you're right, about 2/10 again. It's going to depend on the slipstream. It's going to depend on a lot on the draft that Tim Holgate's able to open up. Also, if Brandon Trost encounters any any traffic whatsoever, that could hurt the race leader, the 007 machine of Brandon Trost as well. I think
he's not going to hit traffic, Randy. I'll tell you that right now. There's
looking at he's got
in
clean
front
air.
of that 007. So at this point, it's going to be a case of if Holgate gets there, and if Holgate gets there, does he even want to challenge for the win? Because I don't want something happening at the last minute. I mean, he has it all locked up, so this is going to be a case of how hard does Tim push to grab that lead and win this race, and you know, crown off P1 and top of the championship in the same night. You know, just sweep the victory lane celebrations. We'll just have to see. But Holgate, that was still about 2.5 tenths or so that he picked up there. So Holgate is flying. The question is, though, 7 laps at the line. Does he have time for the slipstream to work in his favor?
The thing to keep in mind, about 2 to 2.5 tenths. Normally that would take you about 10 laps to reel in a 2-second gap. Well, Tim Holgate, he has to find a way to do it in 7. He needs to be pushing that extra 0.5 tenth every single time around this racetrack. And this time through, another 2.5 tenths goes. It goes from 2.22 tenths to 1.98. So inside 2 seconds now is the gap between your race leaders with 7 laps to go out here on the racetrack.
Yeah, and Holgate, just time running out for that driver of the 06, but you know, that can be a blessing and a curse, because as it sits right now, he is locked into that championship. It's clinched at this point, so all he has to do is make sure he doesn't somehow fall all the way to the back of the field, which I don't think is going to be possible. So for Tim Holgate,
as long as he doesn't do a Christopher demerit and come down pit lane backwards, he's set.
Yeah, and get DQ'd. That would be, I think,
no,
the only
he didn't
thing
get
that
DQ'd.
could happen.
Well, yeah, that too.
So I think for Tim Holgate at this point, it's, well, you get to celebrate the championship for 6 laps at Pocono, and why not make those laps extremely fast? That time it was about 2.5 as well, so it's going more towards Tim Holgate, but the question is, I don't think it's going to be enough. Even with that extra 0.5 tenth or so, it'll be close, but I think no cigar for Tim Holgate.
All going to rely on the slipstream. There's really no way we can predict what's going to happen here. It depends if Tim Holgate can maintain the speed, or if Brandon Trost maybe falls back. I think the laps that he's been able to do here, lap after lap, haven't been quite enough, but we'll keep up the lap comparison chart so you can follow through here if you're watching live. You see a 41.564 for Trost and a 3.69 for Holgate. Just under 2/10 that last time through. Doesn't hit that 2.5 marker that he needs to be hitting, and that's, you know, that doesn't sound like a lot. That extra 500 doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add it up over the course of a handful of laps, especially here inside of 5 laps to go, that is a considerable amount, because right now 5 to go, 2/10 every lap through, that only puts you at a second, and he needs to reel in 1.5, and I think he clipped that curb through 2.
Yeah, he did.
Might have held him up just a little bit, but you can see the speed differential between the top 2, and as they come across to take 4 laps to go, we're able to see what the margin is.
Survey says that the line 1.4. So I don't think that's going to happen, Randy, because he is trying, but unless there's a mistake, and I think clipping that curb hurt him a little bit, he really only gained about a 10th that time by, and Holgate got very close to that wall that time going through turn number 1. So Holgate's trying everything, but I think it's enough, but it's just a little too late.
Yeah, it's a considerable amount he's reeling in, but I think you're right. It's too little too late for Tim Holgate, unless Brandon Trost makes a mistake, or unless he really falls off these last couple of laps. Again,
or unless a fan jumps on like the catch fence or something. That's, I think, the only way.
This isn't Richmond.
Oh, it isn't? Oh, okay. Maybe a fan will run on the track or something. It'll be like WRC.
Maybe, but they don't stop the races for those. As they're inside now again, 3 laps to go, and we should start talking a little bit about Brandon Trost. What a fantastic race this was for him, Cisco. Started in the back of the field, drove his way through the field, and well, you see him now with about 7 miles or so left remaining for him to take the race win of the last race of the season. Pretty much been a pretty solid race for Brandon Trost all the way through, just clean and surprisingly almost a quiet drive, except for that one incident we saw earlier on with Marco Aurelio Brazil.
And Trost, this will be his 3rd win on the season. Got it done at New Hampshire in the Lionheart Retro Series 150, and again at Iowa in the iOS 160. So very good on kind of flatter tracks. You know, didn't get the finish at Indianapolis that he was hoping for. But either way, the driver of that number 007, I think, can hold his head high because a very good finish here at Pocono to finish off the season. Then, of course, we have to talk about Tim Holgate, the guy who's gotten it done so many times in this IndyCar on the iRacing service. He'll round out the season with 3 wins and just a dominating performance here. He's done so well in this series, Randy. And white flag in the air, the final lap of this season for the iAdvance Motorsports Indy Elite Series.
So down the front straightaway, the top 2 come for the final time. And into corner number 1, they're going to go. Brandon Trost, a fantastic race for him all the way through. You see both of them on screen at the same time. And for Tim Holgate, what a season it's been for him. There's 2 talking points for this one here for the top 2. Brandon Trost through the second corner. Clean and green here for him. Well, he's going to come off into this final corner, rather. And he will take the 3rd win on this season for himself and tie Tim Holgate for the most wins this season. He will win here at Pocono in the season finale, but Tim Holgate will come home P number 2, and he will lock up another championship to put into his belt. That number 06 machine of Tim Holgate expects some big celebration for him after this one, Cisco.
Absolutely, the gray and red IndyCar that has made his name so famous here, not only in the Apex InfoTech series, as well as all over the service and is in this IndyCar. And he wasn't able to steal the 500 this year. He was extremely close at getting it, but just wasn't able to do it. But I will say,
we saw him in a few different Indy 500s this season.
Yeah, exactly. Tim Holgate is the journeyman. He's the master, I should say, when it comes to this IndyCar, and another championship for the driver of the 06. That's pretty awesome right there. But Brandon Trost, meanwhile, is heading to the front stretch. Tim Holgate already pulled that car into the inspection line. Meanwhile, Brandon Trost is going to light up some Firestones.
And now just thinking here, talking about the fact that Tim Holgate really, he had a couple of those Indy 500s that he really came close to notching in, one of which was this season's Indy 500 in your Indy Elite Series. Came very close to winning that one, but Andrew Kinsella, I believe it was, is the one
4 100ths.
Yeah, 4 100ths of a second. And then 2 weeks later, we had the Classic IndyCar Series in between. 2 weeks later, the official iRacing Indy 500 happened, and the same thing happened again to Tim Holgate. Lost out the official iRacing Indy 500 to Christopher Demerit by just a couple tenths as well. But like you said, comes away with the championship. So a little bit of sweet and sour back and forth this year for him.
Yeah, absolutely. But either way, Tim Holgate not going anywhere in these IndyCars. Still the strongest driver, I think, in this car on the service right now is that driver of the 06, but gets it done. Another championship trophy for Tim Holgate.
And with that, after 130 laps of racing, we will go down the post-race results from the Indy Elite Series finale here at Pocono. So Brandon Trost, what a season for him. He comes away with the race win here in Pocono and actually might toss his hat into the ring to end up top 2, top 3 in the championship, depending how the points play out. Tim Holgate, what a run from him from pole position. Fell back outside of the top 5 at one point, but he will clinch another championship for himself. Austin Espati will finish 3rd. Joe Branch came into this race 3rd in the points. He had about a bit of an outside chance to win it. Well, didn't quite get it done, and even if he had won the race, wouldn't have gotten it done anyways. He will finish 4th, with Joe Flanagan rounding out your top 5. John Downing will finish 6th, with Andres Elk 7th, Vinicus Gordello 8th, Robert Gortz 9th, and Bradley Walters in 10th. And moving on down the order, Stanley Inch 11th, Andrew Kinsella 12th, Vic Caudell 13th, Marco Aurelio Brazil 14th, Adam Plunkett 15th, but Tony Schoen and Niles Anders both rounding out the field about 100 laps plus down. We'll be back here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live to bring you all the post-race coverage here from your Indy Elite Series, both for the race and probably this season as well. Don't go away. Welcome back here to RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live as post-race coverage begins here from your Apex InfoTech Indy Elite Series. Normally you have to be able to speak in order to commentate, but, well, loose standards here on RaceSpot. But Randy Chin and Cisco Scaramuza, we've been here with you the entire 130 laps. And, well, time for that post-race coverage as we have a handful of drivers to talk to. And, well, Cisco, you're stood by with that first driver here that we're going to speak with, and that's race winner, Brandon Trost.
Yeah, I caught up with Brandon Trost. Oh, no, we caught him mid-conversation. There we go. We'll squeeze in here. Brandon Trost gets the race win here from Pocono. Race win, Brandon. An excellent win for you. You started 12th. Wow, kind of drove your way through the field. Talk us through it, man.
Well, you know, we didn't have the best car today at all. Car was terrible. Very tight throughout the run. Could not fix it with downforce or anything. But, you know, we just kept going at it, kept racing, tried our best, and tried to avoid hitting the wall hard.
Well, I will say it looked pretty good for you all day. You had a little bit of contact with Marco Brazil towards kind of the middle to later stages of that race, but at the end of the day, you were able to just hold serve once we kind of got through that yellow flag stint, and after that, you basically just drove away from the field.
Yeah, I don't really know with the Marco incident. On my end, he was ghosting and glitching. I don't really know exactly what happened there. So no comment on that part. But after that, yeah, the yellow helped us out. We got up front. Our car was pretty good. I thought Holgate was pretty good too, but I think Holgate just waited too long to pit. You can't really do that around here because you lose too much time.
Well, still, nonetheless, a race win for you here at Pocono seals up your championship as well. And the way it sits right now, I believe, we'll take a look at the season standings. And survey says they have just gone official. So that means you are going to walk out of this 2017 season number 2 of the Indy Elite Series, sitting second in the standings. So not a bad points day for you, I guess. You finish on the podium for the championship. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's nice. You know, I feel like we should have done a little bit better this year. We had a lot of DNFs. If we hadn't, maybe we would have had a shot with Holgate. I don't know. You know, I think Indy was really what hurt us. We only got like 30 points in Indianapolis in a double points event. I mean, that hurt.
Well, still, I'll give you a chance. Any sponsors, shout-outs, anyone you want to say hello to that's helped you get it done all season here in the Apex InfoTech Indy Elite Series?
Well, I'll thank everyone on Team Velociraptor or anyone that's even been a part of Team Velociraptor at one point that I was using a setup of. You know, namely, I'll go with Paul Jennings and Adam Dock, who built most of the setups I used this season.
All right, well, that's Brandon Trost. Gets the win here from Pocono, second in the overall points this season. Brandon, we'll see you next season.
Yep, see ya.
That's Brandon Trost, got it done here at Pocono, and, well, it's time to break out the hardware because Randy Cheneth has caught up with this season, Season 2 champion, Tim Holgate.
I don't want to know the context of that possible Freudian slip there, Cisco, but we're now stood by with Tim Holgate. Pole sitter tonight, finishes second, potentially, unfortunately. But, Tim, you managed to wrap up yet another IndyCar championship. Is this just getting boring for you at this point?
Hey, guys. No, absolutely not. The competition is really stiff in this league, so every race there's a chance for probably 4 or 5 guys to win on just a regular basis without anything strange happening. And, you know, given cautions and everything, it's always strategy to contend with. So, you know, anyone in the top 10 usually has a chance for winning these races. So, no, and it definitely doesn't ever get boring. Have to always be on top of our game to finish near the top end of this field week in and week out. So, wouldn't call it boring.
And so talking about this race here today, Tim, I mean, it was a pretty clean race all the way through. Only that single caution after the incident with Brandon Trost and Marco Aurelio Brazil. You know, how was that for you out there? You know, I don't think we really talked about that with Trost, who we just talked to, but, you know, 130 laps around this racetrack is a long set of racing. That's an hour and a half with only one caution about the midway point. How was that for you out there?
Oh, it's pretty good. I mean, we're used to running long races. Green races don't really affect us too much. I mean, it's much harder to run a green road course race than it is an oval to keep your concentration, hit your marks and everything. Ovals are, you know, long oval races, not too bad. Indy is usually the most strenuous just because of how close everyone is running and everyone's trying to be at the front. The Brandon and Marco, definitely I saw them tangling and just decided not to get involved in that, and so I just kind of laid back while they battled. Thankfully, I was about a second and a half back when they made contact.
And so talking about the rest of this, you know, fantastic championship overall for you, Tim. It's been a really successful year in the IndyCar this season, not only in this championship, but we talked earlier on, you know, the almost winning the Indy 500 earlier this season in this championship, almost winning it again a couple weeks later. What are your plans going into 2018? You gonna keep running with us? Gonna, you know, in these and other various series, or what's the plans for Tim Holgate next year?
And we'll probably, I mean, I always enjoy running the IndyCar, so I'll probably come back if there's another Elite Series league. If 16th Street makes a return, I'll probably be there. Doing a lot of road course racing right now in the IndyCar. It's a bit of a, with the AccuForce turned up, is actually a fair workout, burn some calories, so that's always kind of fun.
Well, that looks good for you, Tim. Congratulations again on another strong P number 2 and a fantastic championship as well. Before we let you go, any shout-outs, or who would you like to thank?
Yeah, definitely got to thank my teammates at Snake Pit Racing. We put together a good car almost every single race. Couldn't do it without them. I want to thank my sponsors at Sam Maxwell Customs. The F1 wheel I've got here, it's been fantastic all year round. Got to thank Ubuntu for always keeping me comfortable. Z Blue Software for putting together the Z1 dashboard that we use to help with fuel strategy. And definitely want to thank RaceBot and Joe Branch for putting the league together and you guys broadcasting.
Well, we always love doing this championship, Tim. Thanks again for all the thanks. Look forward to seeing you next year.
Thanks, guys.
And moving on down the order, Cisco, I think you're stood by a third-place finisher. That's Mr. Austin Espity.
Yeah, I've caught up with Austin down here on pit road, and Austin, not where you wanted to finish. You were up there all night, and just you weren't able to finish it out, but still a great run for you. Started 7th, finished 3rd, and a long day, but an excellent day for you and your team.
Yeah, it was actually a lot of fun today. We started 7th, and we fell back to like 10th on the initial start, and once the fuel burned off, we were quick. We're probably the quickest car in the long run, and picked them off, made myself up to 1st. And kind of just held there for a while, but we had no short run pace, so as soon as that caution came out, I knew I was going to be screwed, and they took off, and I just did my best to manage to finish 3rd.
And that finish will actually shoot you up 4 spots in the championship standings, and you will finish this season 6th place in the point standings. That's got to feel good. 9 starts, and you're finishing 6th, and you're up there with the guys who started every race this season.
Yeah, that is good. I mean, Indy, I missed the other double points one because I was in New York City, but that was a big hitter. Then I wrecked out a couple times and missed Gateway and wrecked out Iowa. So I think I would have been able to be up there for the championship, but I'll take a 6th place after only really realistically running like 5 of the 9 races.
Well, still a great finish for you from Pocono to round off the season. Sponsors, shout-outs, who gets it done for you and your team?
I think a big shout out to Andrew. He was working all day on the setup, and I kind of sent him one at the last second, and we just worked on it. We didn't fall off in the long run, and this whole season it was just bump and grind with Andrew and I, and the best setups, and everyone at Absolute Power Slide. It was a really fun season.
That's Austin Espity, finishes 3rd here at Pocono. Austin, congrats, and we'll see you next season.
Yeah, thank you guys for this entire season.
And that's Austin Espity. I'll hand the mic back over to Randy Cheneth as he's caught up with the guy who finished 3rd in points here, but also had a great run as well. Joe Branch finishes P4.
Yeah, I'm stood by with that 4th place runner, Mr. Joe Branch. Joe, big day for you. Started 4th, finished 4th, but I think most notably for you, both as racer, clean race all the way through, and series admin. Always good to see one of these long races go all the way through with just a single caution at the midpoint.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I thought for a while we might go green the whole way. It's been a good series, good season. You know, the schedule's a little tough to go through the summer, so anytime you last race your season, 17 guys show up, when there's football on, and I gotta thank all the guys for their loyalty and continue to come out and race week in and week out. It's a lot of fun doing this, and when you get good guys out there, it makes it worth it.
Now, just talking about you, personally coming into this race, Joe, you had the potential to come away with this championship. It was a pretty, it was sort of you were sort of, I think, the dark horse. Trost was definitely a black hole in terms of his potential to win the championship. Just, so many crazy things would have had to happen that would have seemed unlikely. But you were sort of the likeliest unlikely person to maybe come away with this. How confident that you were that you could potentially get it done? Was it more so worrying that you could win the race, or the fact that Tim would have had to finish 6th in order for you to wrap it up?
Well, being Pocono, I knew Tim's always going to be fast, so I I knew it was going to be circumstantial if I had a chance. My goal was to get second. Just missed that by 10 points. But all in all, I mean, Trost had to win there to beat me from it, so he deserved it. So I think it was a good day. I kind of maintained my position and finished in the top 5 as far as the race. And we missed the setup a little bit, so to come away with the top 5, I'll take it.
And well, Joe, for this championship moving forward in the next season, the Indy Elite Series, what can we expect from you guys next year? Is the championship going to be back? Going to, same schedule, different schedule? What's the plans there for the Indy Elite Series?
I've been in discussion with a few things. I'd like to do a little bit more, maybe a little bit bigger schedule, with possibly some different things, but it all depends on some outside factors. There will definitely be something from Elite next year, though it could be smaller, it could be bigger. I am going to start working on the next project, so something will happen, but I can't guarantee exactly what that'll be.
Well, thank you once again, Joe, and I look forward to that next season. Before we let you go, and before you can get to the rest of the year and enjoy the downtime as a series admin, what with the holidays and everything. Well, maybe not downtime. A lot of organization happens now. Any shout outs, and who would you like to thank here after a successful run here this season?
I want to thank everybody, especially the drivers that came out every week. I haven't said this and should have, but I want to thank Dan Lee Inch for his write-ups and sending them to iRacing News every week. By far, hands down, the best write-ups I've ever seen from any series. So I can't say thanks to him enough. You guys put on a great show every week. And couldn't do it without you, and also Apex InfoTech for the support again. We weren't going to broadcast all the races this year. We was just going to do select ones, and they stepped up and wanted to get it done, so their support definitely deserves a big thank you. So I appreciate everybody's support, and we'll do it again.
Well, huge thanks for that, Joe. You go, and you have a good rest of your evening. And good luck this off season. 1, getting relaxed, and 2, getting everything sorted and make things bigger and better next year.
Thank you.
Well, Cisco, what a race and what a season it's been thus far. We've seen Tim Holgate be absolutely pretty much flawless all the way through. Fantastic in the big races, come away with 3 wins this season, and really he just drove a very quiet race today in order to come away with this one. He didn't push himself too hard. He just sort of went around knowing what he would need to do, and he got the job done.
And it was a very Tim Holgate kind of race. Only one caution there, and a lot of strategy came into it. When to pit, when to take tires, when to short fuel the car. So I think a very excellent race by everyone run here. And as the sun begins to set on the off season, we do want to say hello to everybody who's helped make these broadcasts possible as well. 2 of the familiar voices on this series as well, Jack Stiles, Will Vincent. They've already passed out. It's nighttime in the UK. It's past, I think it's past midnight at this point for those guys. So Will's having a busy week, so wasn't able to join us here this evening, but we want to say hello to those guys and thank them for helping us out this season as well, Randy.
Yeah, huge thanks to everyone who hopped in this season to help out with all the coverage of this Indy Elite season. Huge thanks to everyone as always. But that's going to cap it off for us here on Race Spot TV and iRacing Live. Not only tonight, but to cap off, as we said a few times already, the second Indy Elite Series. And we have to extend our congratulations to Tim Holgate, who has now gone 2 for 2 for Indy Elite Series champions. And Tim Holgate, pretty much putting himself into that elite group of not only IndyCar drivers, but drivers on the iRacing sim as well. But from everyone here at RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live, from everyone involved with the Apex InfoTech Indy Elite Series, thank you for what you've done for us this season. Thank you for tuning in, and we look to see you next time. Bye-bye.